Hello and welcome to Sex Part. Today I want to start a new series. What if Deku got the powers of the Hercules? If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
In Mustafa, Japan, a 7-year-old boy with green hair is seen sprinting through the streets amid a torrential downpour. Izuku Midoriya is a boy who was born into a superhuman society and possesses abilities known as quirks. He is one of the 20% of people on the planet who do not possess these unique skills, also referred to as quirks. He is pushed in the direction of the old city park by an unusual rainstorm. Izuku is running into an old cave in the park while attempting to find shelter from the thunder and lightning. Inside the cave, a young Izuku rests and gazes. He spots a cave while searching. Izuku's mother, Inko Midoriya, yelled, "Izuku! Izuku, where are you, my baby boy?" As she searched for her son before he could investigate it further. Izuku sees something calling to him from the pillar before he can rush to her. He reaches out to touch it. Before long, the pillar is illuminated brightly. A disembodied voice said, "Go to your mother, as for many years from now you must come back when you are old enough for a test of the spirit and courage." Izuku looks around, a little alarmed, but he nods and does not return. For his part, Izuku made an unintentional discovery that would enable him to significantly realize his dream. Izuku will recall the most significant day of his life, which will unintentionally alter the hero's world forever. Izuku rushed to his mother so they could return home. 6 years later, time-skip Izuku Midoriya, 13, is seen making his way to the former Mustafa Park. Izuku appears to have been the victim of an explosion combined with a gang attack. Because he doesn't have a quirk, Izuku has been brutally bullied by his classmates for the rest of his childhood and up until his final year of middle school. Katsuki Bakugo was the most vicious of his bullies. A teenager who boasts of wanting to be the greatest hero to outdo All Might and has an explosion-related quirk that denigrates Izuku whenever he mentions heroism. For his part, Izuku knew deep down that despite Katsuki's potential, he is more of a despotic bully who preys on those who are weaker than him. Izuku was thinking deeply about his experiences over the years, including being teased by his nerdy classmates and receiving no support from any of his teachers. He recalls all the times he was physically assaulted because he wanted to be a hero. Izuku then unexpectedly realizes that he has always wanted to be a hero. What does being a hero entail? Is fame at stake? Does what defines a hero have to do with glory? Izuku begins to sense a pull coming from a specific direction as he is moving. For his part, Izuku heads toward the old park where, 8 years ago, he found a pillar with an odd origin and design. Izuku heads for the cave where he discovered the pillar, and upon entering, he sees it. Time hasn't touched it, and only he has found it. Izuku approaches the glowing pillar to take a closer look. He keeps going until he hears. The disembodied voice Izuku heard years ago said, "Welcome back, young one. Are you ready for the test of courage that will test your spirit and willpower so you can gain the secrets of superhumanity?" Izuku asked, surveying the cave. What do these tests inquire about? As Izuku considers this possibility that the voice of this enigmatic pillar has given him, the disembodied voice said, "Test of character, test of principle, test of virtue. These are the tests that will test your courage and will in these particular areas. For in each you will make a choice that makes your desire to be a hero possible." A chance to be a hero serves as a symbol for people who are frequently attacked, mistreated, or victimized, whether they are a violent villain, a quirkless criminal, or a hero who grows too big for his pants. The last thing Izuku heard was when he overheard some juvenile offenders at another junior high discussing how they wished to imitate those behaviors. Izuku was also considering the greatest hero, All Might. Even though he is a symbol of peace, the crime rate is steadily but quickly rising, making him a symbol that is waning in times that need a champion. Izuku himself believes that quirk discrimination is the reason behind some of the villains that appear out of nowhere. For his part, Izuku makes a choice that will alter the course of history. Izuku declared, "I accept your test," as soon as the pillar began to glow, absorbing him and illuminating the cave with a brilliant light. Within a different dimension, Izuku scans the area and finds a training ground in a desert-like setting, but he fails to spot a tall, Amazon-like woman wearing armor that is typical of Mongolian warrior women. The warrior Amazon looked at Izuku and said, "Greetings, young Izuku, welcome." Izuku looked at the woman in question and blushed at her eyes, asking, "What is this place?" On the inside, Izuku hasn't adapted to being around the fairer sex, especially those of the attractive variety. He sees a woman who resembles a warrior goddess. "Well, young Izuku, this place is known by many names. But right now call it the Golden Temple. This is where the Pillar of Fire and Storms have teleported you here." This is where you will be trained and taught in its knowledge and secrets by some of the most valiant combatants in various cultures of many dimensions and return home," replied the warrior woman. Izuku looked at the woman and said, "So who are you?" Izuku was taken aback by the woman's name and responded, "I am Cthulhu of Mongolia." Izuku looked at the warrior woman in question and thought, "She is the legendary warrior princess and descendant of Genghis Khan." Izuku looked at the warrior woman and said, "So what is my first test of the Pillar of Fire and Storm's Cthulhu?" "Your first test will be the test of principle," Cthulhu declared as a portal opened. After Cthulhu took his belongings to protect them, he said, "Go through this portal and your test will begin," as Izuku entered the portal. Izuku was put to the test over the course of the following 4 hours. He was asked to imagine a scenario in which a hero killed a woman after raping her, and he watched the action from a distance. When Izuku saw the hero, he was threatened to remain silent. Izuku spits in his face after glaring at him for his heinous behavior. He was beaten as a result. The hero was dishonored in the eyes of the world and imprisoned as a result of Izuku's continued outing of him after he recovered. After the test was over, Izuku entered the character test through a different portal. After learning that he had acquired a quirk and used it to learn about such treatment, he witnesses a woman being beaten by her husband in front of their kids for the exact reason he has gone quirkless. Izuku goes to the authorities to report such treatment. Izuku consoled the kids who had been subjected to such treatment, giving them hope for bravery similar to what Izuku was experiencing in spite of his own eccentricity. The last test for Izuku was a future one. Izuku learned that the citizen's arrest law had been repealed when he arrived home. He discovers his mother dead and defiled as chaos erupted, with quirkless people being attacked and victimized in the most horrible ways imaginable. Izuku becomes a vigilante and takes the fight to the quirk people who abuse their power because he is furious with the government and wants to defend the common quirkless. Those who go on to reclaim their streets and lives are motivated by Izuku. He returns to the Golden Temple as the last portal soon opens. As a number of figures emerge to mark the start of his training and journey, Cthulhu declared, "You have finished your tests and shown you have what it takes to gain the knowledge and wisdom of superhumanity to fulfill your dream of heroism." 3 years later, time skip for Izuku Midoriya, who had essentially vanished from the world at Aldera Junior High, things have changed. He now spends more time in the library and away from the streets, where he receives covert training from some of the most courageous fighters in history. In addition to the various martial arts and combat techniques taught by his Golden Temple instructors and those he is learning on his own, he had started learning several languages. Izuku, for his part, had developed a physique and build similar to that of an Olympic gymnast and an American football quarterback, neither too lean nor too muscular. Izuku's training, which focused on bodybuilding, weightlifting, gymnastics, and classical parkour using the natural method, successfully transformed him into a 6 feet 0 inches student who was strong and agile. Izuku trained in a variety of fighting techniques and fighting arts from different eras, which helped him become an exceptionally talented athlete and fighter overall. He is currently in his homeroom class. Izuku is reading a Japanese translation of John Bogart's book How Heart Can Take You Places. Unaware that he is Izuku Midoriya, a number of the girls and some boys who had tormented him had grown attracted to him. The teacher arrived as the class was settling in. The instructor entered the room grinning broadly. The teacher threw the sheets up in the air while the students yelled excitedly and used their quirks. "Now I know that all of you are in your 3rd year, so I will be passing out forms to help you with your future plans, but why bother since I know that all of you want to go to the hero track," the teacher said. One Katsuki Bakugo remarked, "Hey teacher, don't lump me with these losers, they'll probably end up as sidekicks." A student asked the boisterous blonde, "What makes you better than any of us?" While everyone is talking about the blonde getting into UA High, Bakugo smirked and declared, "I am going to the number 1 school in the country." The teacher's response puts an end to the blonde's arrogance. "Actually, Bakugo, you're not the only one, as Izuku Midoriya is also applying to UA." Bakugo appears enraged as Izuku keeps reading his book. The blonde glances at the greenette in question, who is still reading, and asks, "Did someone call my name?" Everyone, with the exception of Bakugo, looks at him in shock because they all assumed that Izuku was a new student who was mute. Katsuki looked at Izuku and the more athletic greenette, who stared at him blankly. "Deku, I don't care if you got bigger from some growth spurt. You're still a delusional quirkless fool if you think you're getting into UA," Katsuki said. When the bell rang to end school, Bakugo was about to respond foolhardy, "Why should I because you say so? Or does your pride speak for you?" As he left, Izuku said, "Have a nice day everyone." Everyone was still in disbelief over Izuku's transformation in both appearance and demeanor. The greenette decides to discipline Bakugo, who doesn't like it, and decides he wants to regain control. He moves to beat Izuku along with his group of flunkies. Izuku had disappeared from the school's location before they could even teach him this lesson. Alongside Izuku started his free running routine after changing out of his uniform and putting on a gray hoodie with his sleeves rolled up and gray sweatpants. He moved through Mustafa with ease, showcasing his artistic acrobatic skills. However, a girl with black hair pulled back in a spiked ponytail is pursuing him from behind, so he is not alone. The girl, who appeared to be about his age, said, "Hello there." The two are navigating the rooftops with ease and skillful timing. Even though the girl is talented in her own right, she soon makes a mistake when jumping on a rooftop and falls. Izuku senses this and goes to catch her in an acrobatic way that would make Olympic-level gymnastics jealous. Holding her by the bridle, he is able to capture her. Izuku blushed at the girl he was holding and asked, "Are you okay?" as he looked at the girl in question. Izuku can see that the girl has a fierce determination in her eyes, along with a beautiful face. Her ponytail is pointed. As he helped the girl stand up, Izuku thought, "I must thank Cthulhu for helping me get over my shyness around beautiful girls." "Yes, I am fine, thank you for the save," the girl said, gazing into the taller boy's face and thinking, "He's quite handsome." Izuku looked at the girl and said, "Where are my manners? I am Izuku Midoriya." "My name is Momo Yaoyorozu," Momo replied, grinning at the green-haired boy, who grinned back. Izuku stops Momo as she is about to leave, saying, "Well, I should get home, it's getting late." Izuku worried about the girl's safety and said, "Wait, let me help you home." What a gentleman, Momo thought as she and Izuku made their way back to the rooftops. Izuku and Momo traverse Mustafu's rooftops, which many people don't perceive as a concrete jungle. Izuku is astounded by Momo's creative movement as he looks at her. He could liken her physique to that of a gymnast. Remarkable, she has beauty and grace in the skill of parkour, Izuku thought to himself as Momo gazed at him and had a similar thought. Izuku and Momo get closer to her house. As she heads home, Momo says, "Thank you for helping me get home. Hopefully we could meet again." Her home gives Izuku the impression that she comes from a wealthy family. Izuku said, "No problem, I'm happy to help. I hope to see you again sometime," as he headed home. Momo looks back at the moving Izuku as she enters the gates, knowing deep down that she will see him again. "You bet," Momo thought, recalling the amazing boy she had just met. Alongside Izuku it's getting late, and Izuku is making his way through the rooftops to his house. He hears explosions coming from street level as he moves. He notices a sludge-based villain holding his childhood bully hostage as he looks over the side of a building. The sludge villain's hold on Katsuki is too tight for him to break free. Heroes like Slugger, Backdraft, Kamui Woods, and Mount Lady are present. But the only person taking action is Backdraft, who extinguishes the fires started by Katsuki and keeps people safe. Seeing enough, Izuku takes action. Before the sludge villain can react, he picks up a rock and throws it at Katsuki, knocking him out as he leaps on top of him, yanks him out, and throws him towards the crowd. He then performs an acrobatic leap off the sludge villain and back on the rooftops. The sludge villain is captured when the heroes, minus Backdraft, and another hero dogpile him with buckets. They turn to face Izuku, who had vanished from view. Looking at Izuku's location, a slender man with blonde hair remarks, "It's amazing that boy displayed a strength, speed, and agility dynamic like I haven't seen before." As he recalls the boy's display of skill and ease in saving Bakugo and eluding the sludge villain, he says, "All in the name of heroism." Returning to Izuku, Izuku is making an acrobatic move in the direction of his house, and as he descends, he notices his mother staring at him sternly. Due in part to her son pushing himself to reach new heights of physical and mental ability, his mother, Inko Midoriya, had undergone positive change and maintained her figure. "Where have you been?" Inko asked sharply. Izuku laughs while describing his day. A news break appears on the TV as the two continue to eat a reheated dinner. As footage of Izuku's seemingly superhuman athletic and martial prowess is shown, the news anchor said, "Breaking news. Today in Mustafu, a middle school student named Katsuki Bakugo was held hostage by a sludge villain. Before any hero on the scene could do anything, a mysterious boy with green hair had come out of nowhere and saved Katsuki with an incredible display of agility and technical precision." Inko looked at her son and asked, "Did you have to throw a rock at him?" As Inko considers it and shrugs in agreement, Izuku said, "What, he was starting up fires. I had to do something, otherwise he would trigger more fires." Until a knock on the door is heard. Mother and son are still eating dinner. When Izuku opens it, He sees all of the heroes from the incident staring at him sternly. Izuku calmly looked at them and asked, "Can I help you?" Kamui Woods asked, glancing at the greenette, "Are you Izuku Midoriya?" Izuku looked at each of them and said, "Yes, I am Izuku Midoriya. What's this about?" Death Arms showed Izuku the video of him saving Bakugo and a picture of him free running, saying, "This is about your reckless actions today." According to Kamui, on top of illegal quirk use. That wasn't quirk use, that was skill, something you three lack. Izuku scowled as they stared at him in disbelief. Izuku pointed to Mount Lady and remarked, "You three showed inability to adapt your quirks in that situation." Izuku said, "Mount Lady, you had an opportunity to scoop up the sludge villain with a water unit to contain him in." The blonde heroine appeared ashamed. Izuku gestures to Slugger and Kamui Woods before saying, "You had a chance to disable him with a nearby fire hydrate by directing the surging water at the villain. He's made out of sludge, he would have fallen apart." Izuku looked at them all and said, "You know you could have broken the sludge villain to pieces with water-covered baseballs, and Kamui, you could have fished him out with a thick branch." Izuku stated, "Backdraft had roles to play to keep civilians back and control the fire. My actions allowed no one to be hurt and fires to spread." Backdraft was the only hero who remained silent during the hero's argument. Mount Lady remarked, "Well, you still can't be using your quirk in public." Izuku corrected the future hero, saying, "Newsflash, I don't have a quirk. What you saw was skills in rock throwing, javelin throwing, parkour and acrobatics. Now would you all please leave? I have a training regiment to finish and it starts at 5:30 in the morning. Oh, and don't just focus on glory, you are doing a public service act, your role," Izuku said, closing the door behind the heroes, who appeared ashamed that a teenager had reprimanded them for not being flexible in the field. Izuku takes a shower before going to bed in order to find out what information he will need to finish his training from the Golden Temple. The following day, to complete his training at the Golden Temple, Izuku is jogging in the direction of the former park. Bakugo tries to follow him as he approaches it, but he quickly loses sight of Izuku because he is simply faster than him. The fact that Izuku has outrun him enrages him. Izuku enters the cave and reaches the pillar, which instantly transports him to the Golden Temple. In the Golden Temple, "Hello Izuku, how are you?" Kutlan said, grinning at the teenager. "Very well, Cthulhu-sensei. I have kept up my training very nicely. I am ready for the last part of my training," Izuku replied. Cthulhu said, "Good, now, your final piece of training will be involving the arts of the spirit, for your mind and body are strong and formidable. Your spirit will need to be so to meet the challenges of the future." Izuku understood the meaning as a figure with a gray beard and robes resembling those of a monk or sage moved forward. Bodhidharma looked at a stunned Izuku and said, "Greetings, young Izuku. I am who your people call Daruma, but know to the world as Bodhidharma. I will be teaching you what you need for your journey of heroism." For his part, Izuku is astounded to learn from the renowned Bodhidharma, the monk who has had a significant influence on both the spiritual and religious realms as well as the martial arts world. Izuku greets the elderly man with a bow and says, "Teach me, teacher." He and Bodhidharma then head to a location that is far from the training grounds and will help him with all of his martial knowledge and abilities. 8 months prior to the UA exam, timeskip, a young adult with green hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing blue shorts and a black tank top without sandals, is seen dragging big pieces of trash along the beach. In every way, his physical attributes are comparable to those of a Greek warrior. After putting the trash next to a big dumpster nearby, he returns for more. As he cleans the beach of trash that has been thrown there, the sunlight on his face reveals that he is Izuku Midoriya. After completing his training under Bodhidharma, Izuku now needs to learn from his greatest life teacher. Izuku hears a shout of, "Hey!" as he is picking up a refrigerator. He stops and turns to see a girl with pink hair running up to him wearing a black tank top, matching black cargo pants, and boots. As Izuku watches the girl run up to him, she seems to be maturing in a number of ways. Izuku looked at the girl and asked, "Who are you?" The now exposed Mei grinned excitedly at Izuku and said, "I am Mei Hatsume, and you are throwing away parts one need for my babies." Izuku smiles in response to the girl's expression. Wow, this is the second time I've seen a girl with such beauty. However, Izuku thought, this girl has a great sense of excitement and a will to match. Izuku Midoriya shook hands with Mei and said, "Well, if you want some parts for your gadgets, then I'm willing to help. I am Izuku Midoriya." Mei remarked, "Wow, you are really strong," as she felt his well-defined triceps and forearms. She then touches Izuku's torso, feeling the firmness of each muscle. Ayuku remarked, "Ah well Mei, I see your excitement, but don't you think you're getting a little handsy?" as Mei recoiled and blushed at their physical contact. Izuku laughs and continues to assist Mei in locating components for her creations. Izuku discovered during that search that Mei possesses an intelligence quirk that enables her to produce many of her inventions. Mei had discovered that Izuku's peculiarity involved improved qualities of the human body's mental and physical components. She is unaware that his improved qualities are a result of intense training rather than a quirk. After bidding farewell to a god on Earth in her thoughts, Mei said, "This should do it for my new devices. Thank you again, Izuku Midoriya. I hope we meet again." She picked up her cart and left. Looking around the beach, Izuku thinks, "Well, this beach looks better than ever before. I just hope my training is enough for the entrance exam. The beach is trash-free and clean." As Izuku soon makes his way home, the blonde man from earlier observes the greenette, who had cleaned the beach with a great deal of patience and strength. Looking at the clean beach, the man thought, that boy might be something else in the world of heroes. Something that when the symbol of peace isn't needed. Alongside Izuku seeing enough, Izuku walks over and grabs the offending thug and puts him in a wrist lock. Izuku is walking home minding his own business when he notices a group of thugs harassing a girl with pink hair and skin, eyes with black sclera and yellow irises, and more aggressive goons touching her as one gropes her ass. Izuku looked at the four in question and said, "Okay, you boys should go home and leave her alone." The goon pulled out weapons and said, "Yeah, and what are you going to do about it?" When Izuku sees this, he smirks at the goons and kicks the one he's holding in the jewels, making him hunch over. The pink girl flees as the three of them start fighting with the greenette, and Izuku uses his newly acquired street fighting skills to fight the goons, who are unprepared for the unique brawling skills Izuku is showcasing, knocking one out with a spinning back elbow followed by a rising knee to his chin. The second to last of the thugs with a knife rushes at him and is disarmed by a wrist lock, which is followed by a headbutt and a knee to his face, knocking him out. Izuku watches the final thug with brass knuckles get into a boxing stance, and he does the same. The group's boxer tries to use his boxing technique to fight Izuku, but Izuku reveals that he is also a boxer by evading the boxer's technique and knocking him out with a combination of a jab, cross, uppercut, and axe handle smash. "Are you alright?" Izuku asks the girl, turning to face her. "Yes, I am fine. Thank you for dealing with these jerks." The pink girl blushed at the boy's physical appearance and remarked, "I don't know what they would have done if you hadn't shown up." The girl, who was blushing profusely, thought, "Wow, he is godly. Where has he been all my life?" "Are you a local?" Izuku looked at the girl in question and said, "I would like to walk you home safely." "Thank you for the offer." "Ah. Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya," Izuku said, grinning at the girl. Mina looked at the boy in front of her and said, "Well, Izuku, I am Mina Ishido. It's nice to meet you." As Mina and Izuku stroll home, Mina is pleased to be conversing with an honest human being, and not just any human, but one that she finds attractive. "So you're a trained fighter?" Mina asked, glancing at Izuku. Mina notices Izuku's cryptic tone as he responds, "Well, in a way, yes, I am a trained fighter of sorts." Mina wanted to train where her savior had trained, so she asked, "So what gym do you train at?" "Yes, you wouldn't be able to locate my training facility," Izuku said in a mysterious tone. "Not that you couldn't, but it's sort of a special sort of gym, dojo, and training camp rolled into one." Mina was perplexed by both his statement and the green wonder in front of her. Izuku looked at Mina and said, "So tell me, what kind of quirk do you have exactly to look like you do?" Izuku looks at Mina curiously as she explains, "Well, my quirk allows me to shoot out or secrete corrosive acid in streams or in globs at will." "That's fascinating. You could create exits in burning buildings, assist in clearing debris from collapsed buildings, and perform numerous other emergency tasks with that quirk." When the greenette complimented Mina on her quirk, Mina blushed. "Your quirk could save many lives," Izuku said. Mina grinned at Izuku and said, "Wow, thanks, nobody has ever said something so kind about my quirk." When the two eventually reach Mina's house, Mina expresses gratitude to Izuku for walking her home and for rescuing her from a terrible circumstance. Izuku thinks about what the Cthulhu had told him about the impact of his training on people as he makes his way home in a parkour style. On the day of the UA test, Izuku enters the room with confidence in the abilities bestowed upon him by the Golden Temple, and he takes the written exam while Bakugo looks at him angrily at his presence. He and the other participants are currently standing in front of a fictional city. "Hello everyone, this is Present Mike. I'd like to welcome you to the UA exams practical section." "Ah, excuse me, but what purpose does the zero-pointer serve if it's not a target robot? This seems irresponsible for such a prestigious school." A boy with straight indigo hair and glasses said. In this section, you will be taking down robots from 1, 2, and 3-point ranges that represent simulated villains. Present Mike stated, I was going to get to the point that the zero-pointer is an area obstacle that is to be avoided at all times, as the boy appeared ashamed of his naive statement and lack of attentiveness. Izuku spots a nervous-looking girl with brown hair in a bob haircut, and she approaches him while dodging the blue-haired person who tries to stop him. Pardon me, Mrs., but it seems like you're a little anxious. As the girl grinned at the greenette and said, Thank you for those inspiring words, I feel I can do it, Izuku said. I know I am for this exam, I just want to tell you that you'll do alright, just trust in yourself and your ability. When the gates open, everyone is prepared for the start, and Izuku dashes ahead, shocking everyone with his sudden speed. Berserk's theme of forces. What are all of you doing? That child is correct. In a real battle, there are no countdowns. As everyone rushes into the fictitious city to destroy robots, Present Mike exclaimed, Go go go. As Katsuki Bakugo watches Izuku move on rooftops destroying robot after robot and scoring highly on the exams, he is more surprised than anyone else. Izuku sees the first zero-pointer and leaps at it, punching it in its center mass, destroying the rotary function and power supply, leaving the robot inoperable. Izuku paused and concentrated on his spirit, thinking, okay, time to see what Bodhidharma's teachings will help me with. Bodhidharma recalled his training by saying, Remember Izuku, the power of your spirit can do things many would think impossible. Izuku soon transforms into a powerful, dark golden lion and attacks multiple robots, tearing them to pieces with his claws. Within the observation chamber, a man with vampire-like features exclaimed, Wow, look at that kid go. He's tearing those robots to shreds. Looking at the dark golden lion in question, a man with a golem-like appearance said, Yes, he is showing a majestic beauty in his approach to combat. Looking at the dark golden lion, a sexy, black-haired woman wearing rather dubious clothing said. A man dressed like a cowboy said, I reckon we know what that kid's quirk is. It's odd that his quirk status has led to him being classified as quirkless. A man who appeared to be homeless said. Everyone in the room gives him a startled and shocked look. Quirkless, how can that kid be quirkless Aizawa when he shows strength only possible for a super strength quirk and the ability to turn into a dark golden lion which only a shape-shifting quirk could do? Said the vampiric man in disbelief next to Vlad, I'm examining Izuku Midoriya's file. As he shows Vlad the file, Aizawa says, his status is that of a quirkless teen which hasn't been updated not once in his life. Vlad, like everyone else in the room, looks in surprise at the greenette. The golem-like man in question questioned, so how is he doing such feats of strength and power in such a masterful manner? Cementos, I'm not sure. Aizawa remarked, but we might find out, as he observed the lion tearing through the robots. Returning to Izuku after destroying 24 one-pointers, 25 two-pointers, and 32 three-pointers in the exam so far, Izuku disengages his lion form and leaves to allow his fellow participants to score higher. However, before he can do so, he notices students running toward him in terror as the zero-pointer, a huge robot the size of a building, causes them to flee. As he leaves, he soon hears the girl from before yelling that she is trapped beneath the debris. As soon as he sees that she is in danger, Izuku goes to her aid and lifts the debris off of her, startling her. As the zero-pointer approaches, Izuku throws the debris at it, stuns it, and charges up a strong energy attack. Izuku yelled, Leo's thunder, as he hurled a ball of energy at the zero-pointer's head, destroying it. Izuku grabs the girl and carries her in a bridal-like manner to the medical station. How are you? Looking at the girl in question, Izuku asked. The girl replied, Yes, I am fine, just a sprained ankle, as an elderly woman dressed as a nurse approached them. Well, young man, you did a good thing bringing this girl to me, and I must say I have never seen moves from heroes quite like that before, replied the elderly lady in question. Izuku gave her an autograph book to sign and said, Thanks, recovery girl. It's really heartwarming for a veteran hero like yourself to compliment me. In the observation room again, the heroes in the room eagerly watch the video of Izuku's fight. Looking at the video, Cementos remarked, It's amazing that the boy has potential despite his abnormality. According to the woman, yes, and his strength, reactions, and coordination are remarkable, especially his lion-like ferocity and power. He certainly is going to be eye candy for many women. In response to the greenette's innuendos, many of the men started to perspire. A man with blonde hair remarked, Well, aside from Midnight Ahem's statements of his appearance, he has shown himself to have incredible fighting instincts and decision-making when it comes to battle situations and emergencies, such as with young Ochako Uraraka being trapped. This was after he realized that his score had finally been exceeded. So, Principal Nezu, what are your thoughts on this Izuku Midoriya? Looking at a man who seems to be a mouse-bear hybrid, Aizawa asked. Well, the boy is an oddity in and of himself, possessing a power that is unlike any peculiarity we have ever seen. As Nezu looks at the boy in question and notices something he has never seen before, he says, he will be something we may have stumbled upon that will show what heroism truly is. Alongside Izuku smiles as he walks home, assured that he has enrolled at UA. He remembers his Golden Temple trainers, each of whom taught him skills that would aid him in his adventure in the world of heroes, and he looks at the blood moon. Izuku walked home with hope and self-confidence, thinking, soon I will be a great hero and show the world what heroism is all about. Izuku is in his room meditating. Izuku received his letter of admittance to UA 4 months after the exam. He recalls the lessons he learned in the Golden Temple from great warriors from antiquity to the present. He recalled the forms he had learned in his dimension, as well as all the abilities and training they had imparted to him. Before long, Izuku stops and gets up to get ready for his new school. Fortunately, Izuku received a uniform with more fabric flexibility to better fit his body. He has lunch prepared for him in a shack and goes to breakfast with his mother. Izuku has high expectations that must be met as he makes his way to his new school. At UA, several facilities are reviewing video footage of Izuku Midoriya in Principal Nezu's office. She is holding a medical report that she completed in a highly respected quirk specialist in the room. The Greenette's quirkless nature was confirmed by the doctor, who shocked everyone by saying, well, ladies and gentlemen, your new student Izuku Midoriya is confirmed to be quirkless. Cementos, who is interested in the Greenette's abilities, questioned, but how was he able to do these feats of strength and speed, and how was he able to transform into a lion like he did? There has to be a mistake, Dr. Yumoto. As the heroes in the room stare in disbelief at the idea of someone in their school possessing a power that isn't a quirk, the doctor remarked, the tests had come back negative on the quirk factor. Cementos-san, this is a mystery I haven't seen before in my life. I have seen a lot of strength and shapeshifting based quirks, but never have I seen a human with the power of a quirk without being considered quirked. All the more reason to put him in Aizawa's class, for he could discern what this boy truly has, Nezu replied. Such a handsome strong boy with a mystery behind him, Midnight remarked, gazing seductively at Izuku's body as all the men in the room began to perspire. Alongside Izuku is heading in the direction of the school, but Momo is following him quickly, so he's not alone on the rooftops. Momo jumped on a pipe and said, hello Izuku, how are you doing? When he saw her uniform, Izuku said, very well Momo, I see you two got into UA. The two arrived at the front doors of Japan's most esteemed university. Momo walks alongside Izuku. Momo looked at the Greenette and said, so Izuku, I was meaning to ask, what is your quirk? To Momo's surprise, Izuku said, well, Momo, the thing is I don't have a quirk. Then how? I'll explain when we get more acquainted with each other and our classmates. Izuku interrupted, grinning at a blushing Momo. They head for their shared classroom. The two witness Katsuki Bakugo, who is sitting like a renegade with his feet up, being reprimanded by a boy with indigo blue hair and glasses. Bakugo looks over and sees Izuku enter with a girl who has her hair styled like a rooster. Izuku greeted the boy with the indigo hair, saying, hello there, how are you? The boy shook Izuku's hand and said, greetings, I apologize for what happened during the exams. I was brought up to expect the best of everything. It was no trouble. I had a feeling about that due to your mannerisms. My name is Izuku Midoriya, but just call me Izuku. Izuku replied with a grin. Tenya grinned back and said, I am Tenya Iida, it is nice to meet you. When she enters and sees Izuku, another unexpected face surprises her. As the Pinkette entered the room, Izuku exclaimed, Mina, I had no idea you had entered UA. As she looks at Izuku, who blushes in return, Mina says, yeah, I'm surprised with how you scored in the exam. You fought like a lion out there. A voice said, if you are all done greeting each other, I would like to begin the introduction of class myself. Everyone turned to look around, with the exception of Izuku, who turned to face the sleeping bag. Izuku remarked, I was wondering when you would reveal yourself, as Aizawa made himself known to everyone. As Izuku grinned and responded, Aizawa remarked, impressive senses young Midoriya, for you to immediately detect me so easily is something that brings a smile to my face on what I am going to teach. Sensei, you might be surprised about what I have learned. is said by the final student as the class enters. Well, class, let me introduce myself. I am Shoda Aizawa, but some know me as Eraserhead. Cut Izuku off as Aizawa grinned at a student who was aware of his true identity for the first time in a long time. Everyone is in awe of such a well-known underground hero, and Momo said, Eraserhead. You mean the underground hero Eraserhead? Izuku nodded. Everyone was perplexed when Aizawa said, all right, now that everyone is here we need to go out into the practice field. However, Izuku noticed something strange about the instructions, so he followed them along with everyone else. To change, everyone heads to the locker room, within the aforementioned locker rooms. Before a girl with earphone jacks could block it, the girls were getting dressed in their UA-issued gym uniforms when they heard someone shout, hey guys, look at the peephole, I can see the women's locker room. As he plugs it with some clay he had on hand, Izuku says, block it up, you shouldn't be peeping on them, you should respect a lady's privacy and dignity. As Izuku puts on his gym uniform and leaves, Momo and Mina greet him with smiles, thanking him for his consideration for their privacy. Now let's go, our teacher is waiting. You're such a gentleman, Momo remarked, grinning at the concerned Greenette, who simultaneously receives a peck on the cheek from Momo and the girl with the pink hair. As they head to the practice field, Izuku blushes a little at their peck. Mina and Momo give each other a slightly possessive glare. The girl with ear jacks said, hey man, thanks for not peeping on me. Except for two, everyone is wondering why they are on the practice field as they walk out. Aizawa tossed the ball to Izuku and said, okay, I want to see what you all can do before the class inaugural ceremony starts. It will be through a quirk fitness assessment test. Aizawa looked at Izuku, who nodded as he approached the plate. You're up first because you scored the highest in the entrance. That ball has a reading device that sends, he said. Izuku throws the ball 536 meters using some of his normal natural strength. As everyone marvels at the feat, a red-haired boy looks at Izuku and says, wow, that just about broke the record in softball throwing. Izuku nodded and received another ball as Aizawa said, okay, try using your quirk with that, Mr. Midoriya. Suddenly, Izuku loses his mind. Suddenly, his gym uniform rips, revealing his even more muscular physique. While some of the boys look at the Greenette's body with a non-sexual but inspirational gaze, the girls at UA blush at his figure. Izuku then throws the ball, surprising everyone with a startling distance of 1050.60 meters. For his part, Aizawa was surreptitiously using his eraser quirk on Izuku, which shocked him a lot when it didn't work. Looking at Izuku with curiosity, Aizawa thought, this is an anomaly I have never seen before. Bakugo rushes at Izuku, trembling with anger. Bakugo yelled, Deku, you bastard, tell me how you got your quirk, you damn nerd. Izuku was wrapped in what appeared to be an unbreakable cloth before he reached him with an explosion. Bakugo turns and notices that Aizawa is staring at him. Aizawa's words, Bakugo, if I ever see you attack a student like you tried to do, I will drop the hammer on you and expel you and forever block you from getting into UA. Is that clear? Caused Bakugo to recoil. As they proceed with the softball throw, Aizawa lets go of him. Everyone believes that this will be simple, but Aizawa informs them that they will receive the lowest score if they are lazy. Without his quirk, Bakugo throws the ball and sends an explosion on his score of 1045.07 meters, and after Uraraka Ochako throws the ball and scores infinity, he steps up first, throwing and scoring 689.8. Izuku excelled in every test. He tied with Ida in the 50-meter dash, won Mezzo Shoji in the grip strength test, Bakugo and Yuga Aoyama, and Mineta Minoru in the repeated sidesteps. Throughout it all, Aizawa was astounded that he was unable to completely erase Izuku's. Everyone except Momo and Izuku is shocked by the idea of being expelled, so Aizawa said, okay everyone, seeing as you had all of your efforts to score, no one is going to be expelled. All of you were never in danger of being expelled. I wanted to see how you all would do in a high-stress situation, and so far you all passed. However, Bakugo, you need to control your temper, otherwise you'll not make it in this school, much less the hero world, said Aizawa as he examined them all, particularly Bakugo. Izuku looked at the Ravenet in question and said, so Momo, when did you figure it out? As Izuku's muscles continued to rip the top of his gym uniform, revealing more of his muscular torso, Momo smirked and blushed, saying, maybe the same time that you did, Izuku. Izuku switches off his bulky primal state as his muscles return to their normal state after realizing how worn out his uniform is. Even though the Greenette isn't in his primal state, Momo thinks, oh my, as she observes that he has muscles comparable to those of a world-class athlete. She's not alone, though, because Mina is thinking the same thing. As everyone returned to the locker room, Izova said, "Well, class, time to show you around the school. So try not to get lost." The boys are changing back into their uniforms inside the locker room. A red-haired boy said, "Hey Izuku, I need to ask you something," as Izuku turned to face him. "Yeah, sure, what do you need?" Said Eijiro Kirishima, introducing himself to Izuku, who grinned at Kirishima's enthusiasm. "I wanted to ask what your workout routine is because you look jacked, dude. I want to know so I can be manly just like you." As he sends Kirishima the video links to parkour, free running, weightlifting, boxing, and several traditional wrestling arts, Izuku says, "Well, Kirishima, I had trained in the natural method, which is the precursor of parkour and free running, while also incorporating weightlifting and training in boxing and wrestling. You seem strong, so I would suggest doing this workout routine for 6 months. Here, I'll send you the link so you can get pumped up." As he put on his uniform again, Kirishima exclaimed, "Awesome, thanks man, I really appreciate it." Bakugo angrily retorted, "Hey Deku, just because you know all of these skills doesn't mean anything when you're up against any of the best quirk users in the world." As Izuku puts on his clothes and leaves Bakugo fuming, he says, "A quirk is only one's tool. It's the skill that makes the quirk valid. If you are reliant on your quirk's power, then you are just raw power without any skill behind your power." Class 1A was given an orientation to the school's facilities, which included the computer lab, library, and gym, among other academic areas. Bakugo was staring at Deku, who was closely observing how the school's safety operates. As everyone was leaving for home, the school day ended early. How is that loser capable of such strength? As Bakugo watches Izuku use his parkour skills to travel home, he should be beneath me and everyone else. Izuku turns to see Mina staring up at him as he hears a shout of, "Hey Izuku," as he is leaving. "Oh hi Mina," Izuku exclaimed, jumping to her level. Izuku, intrigued by his friend with the pink skin, inquired, "What's going on?" Inquiring about the greenette in question, Mina said, "Oh, nothing much, I was going to the arcade, I was wondering if you would join me." As he and Mina made their way to the arcade, Izuku said, "Sure, I might as well." Once there, they played games of all ages, including Marvel vs. Capcom Sigma, Street Fighter Thunder, Mortal Kombat Champions, and even The Punisher, Warpath. The two had been vigorous in every game. Mina had inquired about Izuku's life while they were in the arcade. Izuku cryptically explains to her how, after a sort of introspective journey, he rediscovered himself after being a helpless boy. For her part, Mina is growing increasingly fascinated by the mystery surrounding the enigmatic greenette. They continued to play various games. Izuku and Mina bid each other farewell and headed home after enjoying themselves at the arcade. Izuku moves with a droid ease across the rooftops on his way to his house, but he doesn't realize that two heroes are trailing him. These two are Izova, also known as Eraserhead, and Midnight. Eraserhead said, "Okay, Midnight, let's keep our distance, no use spooking young Midoriya before we can understand his strange powers." Midnight nodded and responded in a seductive manner. As they follow Izuku's parkour skills, Eraserheads perspire at the words, "Don't worry Eraser, after all I want to see what makes this boy so primal and powerful." Izuku witnesses a small group of 15 street punks harassing a woman in a sexually suggestive way while he is traveling. Izuku jumps down on 2 of them, knocking them out, sensing that they want more than just to sexually harass the woman. Izuku launches an assault while adopting a rather unusual fighting stance. Izova is intrigued by Izuku's hand placement in that fighting stance because it appears more capable and fluid as he blocks using a blocking technique he has seen before. Izuku deflects a punch and strikes a punk in the chest with an unconventional headbutt, sending him sprawling to the ground. Another punk's knee is broken by a block, allowing him to throw a back fist. Izuku quickly eliminates 6 of them by blocking and countering with devastating effect. From above, Eraserhead and Midnight watch the battle in wonder. In order to demonstrate Nezu the Greenette's fighting abilities, Izova records the incident. Izuku dismantles the 15 punks using the fighting techniques he acquired at the Golden Temple. A punk attempts to strike Izuku with a 2x4. In response, Izuku uses his knee to break his face through it. When someone else tries to stab him, Izuku quickly disables him with a combination of an elbow, knee strike, and wrist lock. When a punk who appeared to be a kickboxer attempted to kickbox with Izuku, Izuku used his own kickboxing skills and defeated him with a quick roundhouse that included a low leg sweep and a feint left hook. With lightning-fast reflexes, Izuku disarms and disables the other punk who had pulled a gun by throwing one of the street punk's knives into the guy's hand and removing it. The largest of the thugs attempted to wrestle with him, but Izuku used his own wrestling prowess to defeat him with a powerbomb and a suplex. Izuku uses a downward hammer fist technique to slash out the last person who was charging at him, knocking him unconscious and to the ground. Izuku looked at the woman and said, "Are you all right, ma'am?" The woman thanked him and walked away, saying, "Thank you, young man, you really saved me from those creeps." As Izuku returned to the rooftops in the direction of his house, he thought, well, better head home. Midnight smirked sensuously at the Greenette's fighting skills and asked, "Izova, did you see that the boy was able to take apart each of these punks like it was nothing? It was like he fought like a lion." As he watches the video of Izuku fighting the street punks that were strewn all over the alley and then calling the police for help, Izova said, "Yes, using several forms of fighting. One of which is very much lesser known but surprisingly still effective." Returning to Izuku, Izuku had to give his mother an explanation for his tardiness. When Inko received an invitation to an arcade from a new friend, a girl, no less, he was taken aback. "Well, my son, I know you haven't been causing any trouble on purpose, but please try to keep the street fighting to a minimum. You are in the most prestigious school in all of Japan," Izuku said to Inko. As they reheat dinner and eat, they say, "I'll try, but I can't make any promises." Returning with Midnight and Izova, the two head to Nezu's office in UA after apprehending the street criminals for attempted rape and robbery. A curious Midnight wanted to know exactly what Eraserhead knew about the form Izuku was using, so she asked, "So Eraser, what method of fighting that young Midoriya was using that you were referring to exactly?" Izuku was using the KFM, or Kisi fighting method. It's a system of practical fighting developed by Justo Diguez and Andy Norman, two Jeet Kune Do practitioners. It's built on one's natural fighting instinct and personal growth. The blocking method Izuku was using was the Pensandor, as triangle-style blocking that can allow the user to adapt to any attack and counter-attack with ferocious intent. It's unorthodox, as you have seen any attack could be launched from the practitioner. There was one legendary practitioner. His name was Connor Jack Moore, an American street fighter who had traveled around America for many years solving crime and fighting the criminal element as a nomad. He's a legend that gave Kisi its namesake during the early 2090s. He, however, died many years back of cancer. Explained Izova as he demonstrates the keys. The footage shows how demonstrating to her the strategies, methods, and attack patterns. As Izova nodded, Midnight questioned, "It's unbelievable that Izuku used this system in that brawl in that alley." Izova responded, "Yes, but that is not all. He showed skill in kickboxing and traditional wrestling, showcasing each of his skills in full contact fighting using both." Midnight has developed a non-sexual interest in the Greenette. As they enter UA, Izova said, "Well, let's get this footage to Nezu to show him what we saw." They then proceeded to Nezu's office. The following day, designs for their hero suits were being worked on by Class 1A. For his part, Izuku is sketching a distinctive hero suit design. The suit was inspired by the Spartan's ancient chest plate, which had a lion in the middle and was made of a bulletproof, incredibly flexible and sturdy material. Izuku had in mind a Mongol Tatar-style helmet with arm bracers featuring tribal Mongol markings for his headgear, and he wanted his pants to be similarly flexible and durable cargo pants that also accommodate a utility belt for various items. Izuku chose Jika Tabi shoes with a more samurai vibe, and his boots had the most distinctive design. Izuku begins creating the designs for his accessories. Every object relates to a weapon or implement that was employed by warriors and martial artists in the past. Kenpo gloves are modified to withstand forceful blows and are composed of a unique material that allows them to form around his hands. Shuriken can be used for distraction and to enable rapid disarms and non-lethal takedowns. Tonfas was reinforced for combat in close quarters. A ration bar and medical supplies, gas, concussive, and flash explosion tactical grenades. Tools and lockpicks for infiltration purposes. Izuku completes his illustrations and drawings of his support equipment and suit and transforms them into a teacher. As he asks, Izova is astounded by Izuku's outfit and accessories. He looks at Izuku curiously and asks, "Why do you incorporate shuriken into support items?" As everyone watches him with curiosity, Izuku explained, "Well, I would like to be able to subdue the villain with misdirection or direct action. As I have skills in both ninjutsu and kyusho jitsu." "Kyusho jitsu," Mina said, observing him curiously. Momo looked at Izuku and said, "Kyusho jitsu is the art of attacking pressure points in the human body to disable the opponent with a feathered touch to their weak points." Mina looked at Izuku questioningly and said, "Izuku, I didn't know you knew such a martial art. I'm surprised that you know ninjutsu. So what if he learns it's not like he could hit my..." Bakugo was about to finish when Izuku leapt at him before he could react. hitting him twice in the neck, rendering him silent, and then leapt back with incredible agility. With a questioning gaze on Izuku, Mineta questioned, "What was that? What did you just do him?" "I hit a point in his neck to take his voice. Don't worry Izuba, his voice will return soon." "Oh, and Mineta, you better not be looking the girls' locker room, for I know a point for perverts will fear," Izuku said as Mineta began to shiver with. Aoyama looked at Izuku and exclaimed, "Wow, Izuku, you are a superbila combattante. Merci beaucoup." "Thank you so much, Aoyama," Izuku said, and everyone stared in shock as he thanked the boy in French. Momo asked Izuku, "Ah, so you're multilingual?" Izuku looked at Momo, who was taken aback by the boy, and said, "Yes, I speak up to 10 languages." As he examines everyone with Izuku critically, Izuba said, "Okay class, as much as you want to test Izuku on his multilingual skills, we need to get back to class." "You are very talented, Mr. Midoriya," Izuba thought, recalling the events of the previous evening and the report they had on Izuku. UA High's flashback night. All Might and Principal Nezu are watching footage of Izuku subduing the street punks. "Incredible," was All Might's comment as he watched Izuku use amazing strength and technique to knock out the final man. Nezu remarked, observing Izuku's application of the Kishi fighting method, "Yes, it would seem that Izuku Midoriya has shown incredible levels of combat skills that few have in this world have. Yes, and it would seem that Izuku is well trained in martial combat with skills in a number of disciplines. But Izuku also seems to be very analytical," Izuba remarked while displaying footage of Izuku rescuing Bakugo from the sludge villain after knocking him unconscious. Vlad King laughed at 3 professional heroes being taught by a teenager who isn't even a hero yet. "I had also heard how the boy scolded Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and Slugger about standing around and instead of being adaptable." As Snipe learned of the incident, he remarked, "Yes, that Izuku boy is quite the maverick in his own right." As everyone stared at him with interest, Izuba remarked, "But his power is an anomaly." Nezu looked at the quirk erasing hero and asked, "What do you mean?" "I used my quirk on Izuku during the physical evaluation test, and I noticed that his quirk did not react to mine at all. As if it wasn't a quirk to begin with all," Izuba remarked, leaving everyone stunned. All Might remarked, "What are you, Izuku Midoriya? You are strong." As they watched the disputed video, Izuba remarked, "Remember, highly skilled." The end of the flashback. "You are very strong and talented." As they go over emergency protocols for building fires and building codes, Izuba remarked, "Your powers are unique. I have never seen these abilities in my career as a hero." Before long, the class is dismissed for lunch so that they can meet again for the next rescue theories and concepts session. Alongside Izuku, Izuku is tested by Momo and Aoyama in the following languages: English, French, German, Italian, Chinese, Russian, Mongol, Persian, Arabic, Turkish and Turkic, Romanese, and Indian. All of the students are in awe of Izuku's expertise, with the exception of Bakugo, who appears to be growing more irate over Izuku's multilingual abilities. Izuku witnesses Bakugo's feelings during middle school. Izuku encounters a red-haired girl carrying a book called Book of 5 Rings. Izuku picked up the book in question and returned it to the girl, saying, "Pardon me, I did not see you there." The girl in question grinned and said, "Thank you." Izuku looked at the girl and said, "Izuku Midoriya, your name?" "Kendo. Kendo Itsuka," Kendo uttered as she shook Izuku's hand and they both touched hands. "She is a powerful person." Izuku felt her hands and thought, judging from these calluses, she is well versed in karate. My, he is a very talented martial artist." As they released their grip, Kendo thought, "His hand tells me he has been through the ringer of serious training. I must say you are a strong one. Your hands have seen some serious training in the martial arts. From what I can tell you are very skilled in the martial arts," said Kendo as Izuku smirks and respond, "Yes, I get around many of the incredible teachers they aren't around. I must say you yourself is a fierce fighter from the way your calluses feel." Kendo chuckles. As she made her way to her table, Kendo remarked, "Well, I better be going. Hopefully we will see each other again sometime. To have a match sometime." Momo and Mina appear to have a new rival for Izuku's affections, as they gaze at the redhead with jealousy. The class returned to their lessons on building codes and the existence of fire after lunch. Izuku then returned home after accompanying Momo to a posh gym. Izuba and Midnight then follow Izuku after observing that he used strategically placed stones to disarm 2 gunmen and easily defeated them. As he gets closer to his house, Izuku feels 2 figures behind him. He chooses to ignore them after realizing they are watching him. The following day, in anticipation of a new lesson, Class 1A is seated in the classroom. All Might entered the classroom and declared, "I am here," walking inside of the door like a normal person. Gazing at the top hero in question, Jiro exclaimed, "Wow, All Might is here far out." Momo looked at the top hero and asked, "All Might, what are you doing here?" With Bakugo grinning malevolently at the thought of facing Izuku, All Might remarked, "Oh, I will be the one to be your advisor for your first battle training session." All Might speaks as Izuku mentally gets ready. A cart was rolled in with metallic suitcases, and All Might said, "Before we begin, you all would need to have your hero suits." As everyone changed into their uniforms, Kirishima exclaimed, "Wow," as he examined his suit. Izuku remarked, "Well, I can't believe they went with my armor design," as soon as he opened his suitcase and saw the hero suit he had sketched being manufactured. Class 1A goes to suit up one by one. Everybody marvels at their suits, so when Izuku enters the room, Momo approaches him and they all gaze at his suit in wonder. Momo remarked, "Your suit is fierce looking, Izuku," as she observed the suit's fusion of elements from Mongolia, ancient Sparta, modern America, and medieval Japan. Bakugo remarked, "Ha, the nerd looks like an idiot with that armor," while glancing at Izuku. Bakugo growls as Izuku gives him a stoic look and responds, "Better looking like an idiot than being a fool." Kirishima muttered, "Damn, that is manly," as he observed the two. All Might said, "Okay, everyone follow me to the training area." Bakugo and Izuku continued to look at each other as everyone followed. Izuku motions Bakugo to leave as he raises his head. Izuku follows Bakugo from behind as he growls. Izova appears impressed by Izuku's composure in the face of Bakugo's violent opposition. As though Izuku were merely a lion. "Izuku Midoriya, you are more than what first meets the eye." As he considers the armor and support gear, contemplating some of its weapons for a tactical police officer specializing in bare-knuckle takedowns, Izova thinks, "Your combat skills are high class, your power an anomaly in a world where anomalies are just common occurrences." Using Class 1A, the purpose of their combat training session was explained to the class. Like heroes versus villains, nothing more. There to seize the bomb, which is being guarded by villains who want to prevent the heroes from doing so. Both the antagonists and the hero team would be paired up. As heroes, Izuku and Kirishima are paired together. Ida and Bakugo are paired together as the antagonists. Bakugo can't wait to finally subordinate Izuku to him, as they ascend the mock skyscraper. Izuku said, "Okay, Kirishima, are you ready to do this?" while glancing at his redhead partner, who was armored up in his quirk. Kirishima remarked, "Born ready, Izuku bro," as they prepared for battle and Izuku checked his gear to make sure the shuriken were blunted. Through the control room speakers, All Might declared, "Let the battle training session begin." Bakugo said, "Come on Deku, let's see what you got, you damned cat," as he prepared to meet Izuku. As Izuku checked his sporting equipment, he thought, "Let's do this." During battle training, a battle of wills will be fought to see if Bakugo's anger will triumph over Izuku's iron will. Only fate will know. Izuku and Kirishima are preparing an attack to battle Bakugo and Ida. Izuku inspects his gear in preparation for the fight. Izuku stopped Kirishima before he could say, "All right, let's go straight at them." "Wait, Kirishima, let's not rush into battle without a plan. I know that our opponents, or rather my opponent seeing as Bakugo, would go forward to try to beat me into submission while leaving Ida to guard the bomb. Don't meet the opponent on their terms, do it on yours," Izuku said to Kirishima. Kirishima looks at Izuku, who responds with wise words, and says, "But Izuku bro, it would be manly." After giving it some thought, Kirishima nods to Izuku's plan for him. "I know you're a strong dude, but you have to remember strength alone can only take you so far in all situations. It's adaptability and your ability to think that would make your strength applicable to any situation." Kirishima looked at Izuku and said, "Okay, Izuku bro, I'll listen. But let me ask you, how do you know Bakugo will attack?" As Kirishima comprehends what Izuku is talking about, Izuku said, "Because he wants nothing more than to put me in a seemingly evaporating place. Because a month ago I didn't have these abilities that you seen in the entrance exam." Kirishima looked at Izuku and questioned, "So you're a late bloomer?" As they put on their game faces, Izuku said, "Not exactly. I will tell you about it some time, but right now we need to focus." At the sound of the start alarm, Kirishima said, "Right." On the roof of the deserted skyscraper, "Hey, Four Eyes, watch the bomb, while I go pummel Deku," replied Bakugo. Ida spoke as Bakugo descended the left stairwell, saying, "Hey wait, what is your plan? You're being reckless to just leave me with the bomb." Returning to Kirishima and Izuku. End burning heart by Survivor is the theme. As Kirishima nods in compliance, Izuku said, "Okay Kirishima, I need you to go to the stairway to my left, not the right one." Kirishima ran up the left stairway and said, "Okay Izuku bro, I hope you'll be alright." As he prepares for Bakugo to jump onto a pillar and cling to it with his claws, Izuku cracks his neck. Izuku watches as Bakugo storms into the room. Bakugo yells and bursts into the room. "Deku!" Bakugo looks around, but he doesn't see anything until Izuku pounces on him and strikes him with an elbow smash, taking his breath away and grabbing his attention. Izuku said, "Not my name but you," ranged, as he swerves to avoid Bakugo's explosions. Bakugo is knocked back through a wall when Izuku tosses a concussion grenade at his feet. Izuku lands ready to battle. Alongside Kirishima, Kirishima is sprinting up the stairs. Although he may not be able to move as Izuku did, he has picked up some of Izuku's parkour techniques and can move nearly as well as a professional acrobat and freerunner. Kirishima leaps to the upper floor, lands in a roll, and approaches the bomb room door. He notices Ida when he looks inside. However, the bomb is absent. "What have you done with the bomb, villain?" Kirishima yells as he storms into the room and gives Ida a stern look. Ida remarked, "Well hero, why don't you make me tell you," as Kirishima used his quirk to armor up. Returning to Izuku, Bakugo is playing keep away from Izuku because he is aware that the moment Izuku approaches, the game is over. At best, Bakugo is a scrapper and a mediocre fighter. However, Izuku is a master of hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. Bakugo must engage in a ranged battle. He must first locate Izuku, though. Bakugo is clever. He's attempting to distance himself from me. Izuku moved from behind the pillar as Bakugo approached to battle him, thinking, "Hopefully, the smoke will keep me hidden." Bakugo yelled, "Deku, where are you? Show yourself," as he became enraged over the cat and mouse game. Within the observation chamber, everyone is in awe of Izuku's abilities and strategies. Izuku moves a lot like Batman from the Arkham video game series, Mina observes. The boy is incredibly skilled at both combat and stealth tactics. All Might noticed Bakugo's growing annoyance and thought, he has blended into the environment like a hunter. In the simulation again, Ida is attempting to hit the speedy boy in question while Kirishima is battling him. As he looks for a better position, Ida dodges rather easily. Kirishima thought, "Agrrr, I can't hit him. What am I supposed to do?" as he attempted to combat Ida, who was evading his blow. Ida said, "Come on, hero, you can do better than this," as he deflected a Kirishima punch. Returning to Izuku, Bakugo is growing irritated after suffering a string of terrifying sneak attacks. The greenette punched, kicked, clubbed, and struck him with concussive bombs. Bakugo exclaimed, "Stop this shadow shit and come out to fight, damn Deku," as Izuku leapt across from him. Finally, Bakugo remarked, grinning at Izuku, who was holding one hand behind his back. Bakugo smiles as he pulls the pin after noticing that his gauntlets are drenched in perspiration. When Izuku sees this, he gets ready for what's going to happen. Therefore, the purpose of those gauntlets is to collect some of his perspiration and store it for a stronger blow. "I have one flash grenade left. I'll use my smoke grenade for something else." As Izuku prepared for the devastating counterattack on Bakugo, he thought analytically, "I can drop it as soon as he lets out his haymaker." Izuku threw his cooked flash grenade down seconds before the powerful blast, and Bakugo said, "Deku, I finally get to try out this move on you. You damn loser." Izuku avoided his high-powered explosion. Within the observation room, All Might yelled, "Young Midoriya no," as everyone stared in horror at the powerful blast, which was as close as Izuku's flashbang. Mina starts to worry about her crush. Momo, however, pauses as soon as the flash stops and sees Bakugo standing with Izuku directly behind him. Momo remarked, "Look, Izuku is all right," as everyone turned to see that Izuku was unharmed. Mina appears overjoyed that Izuku was spared from a devastating explosion. When Momo sees this, she smiles, back in the battle simulation. Bakugo laughs at Izuku's apparent surrender. As he turns to go, he notices a sharp right cross to his jaw approaching. As Bakugo tries to retaliate against Izuku's swift counterattack, he is stunned by the blow. With his Kishi skills, Izuku would land punches, kicks, knees, elbows, and finally a headbutt to Bakugo's chest, knocking him out cold and destroying him. Izuku strikes Bakugo in a cluster of nerves in his arms as he tries to defend himself. Bakugo tries to move his arms to the left but is unable. Bakugo snarled, "What did you do to me, you damn Deku?" while Izuku gave him a stoic, disappointed look. Izuku then struck a nerve cluster on Bakugo's neck, paralyzing him and leaving him bound with capture tape. "I hid 2 nerve clusters in your arms. You can't move them for an hour or two," he said. As Izuku hears Kirishima and Ida fighting, he heads for the stairs. Izuku skillfully ascends to the top in an acrobatic manner. Bakugo was left to begin using only his willpower to regain sensation in his arms and legs. Then, in violation of the rules, he rips off the capture tape. "Damned Deku!" snarled Bakugo, who was slowly trailing Izuku. Alongside Izuku as Ida and Kirishima battle to a halt, Izuku stumbles upon a struggle between strength and speed. Izuku uses a cloth lane to blindside Ida and jump in to help Kirishima. Izuku disables Ida by applying pressure to his pressure points. Izuku searches for the bomb after wrapping the capture tap around him. Before he could start the search, Bakugo hit Izuku with a blast, knocking him out of the building. "Okay, Kirishima, let's find that bomb," Izuku said. As Bakugo, still wearing red, jumped out of the building to face Izuku, All Might declared, "Hero Team wins," due to young Bakugo breaking the rules of engagement. Izuku's eyes were obscured by shadows as he landed on a mock car outside. After landing, Bakugo yells, "How do you like that you lose?" But he never gets a chance to finish because Izuku instantly changed into his lion form and became enraged at Bakugo's actions. Bakugo was never able to finish because Izuku jumped on him and paw smacked him into a building, rendering him unconscious. So what's you turned into a big puss? Izuku is in his lion state when everyone arrives to see how the two are doing. "I really hate cheaters, especially when they break the rules to a combat simulation," Izuku, who was still in his lion state, declared. All Might asked, "Well class, could any of you explain who was the MVP of the situation?" And Momo responded. Momo remarked, "Well, it was Midoriya because he had planned and coordinated with Kirishima with his combat skills and tactics. However, another person that should also have the MVP spot was Ida because he concealed the bomb from them both. The girl's intelligence and analytical skills astounded All Might." All Might turned to face Izuku, who was seated, and said, "Okay, that's a very good answer, and seeing as Bakugo broke the rules to this exercise I would have to agree." Momo and Mina were the only girls who looked at Izuku with wonder as they went to rub and caress his fur. Momo thought, "Incredible, his fur is amazingly soft yet so strong," since Mina shares her thoughts. All Might looked at the dark golden lion in question as Izuku transformed back into his human form, and some of the girls blushed at his toned, godlike athletic build. "Okay girls, that's enough, it's time to get back to the exercise," while Izova takes Bakugo to the nurse's office. Seeing that all of his clothes thankfully except his underwear are ruined, Izuku asks. Momo blushes at the greenette's muscular definition as All Might nods and hands him a pair of cargo shorts and a t-shirt. "Ahem, All Might, can I have some pants? See, my hero outfit isn't made out of the same material as my underwear." As the simulations continued, the most intriguing one pitted Momo and Mina against Denki Kaminari and Shoto Todoroki. Before Momo used insulating foam to disable Denki, the pairs appeared to be evenly matched, but when Todoroki's ice froze Momo, she was vanquished. Because Mina's acid attacks cannot be stopped by Todoroki's ice, they had fought to a standstill. Fortunately, Todoroki Mina ran out of time. Everyone goes home after school. Bakugo was suspended for attacking Izuku and for not following the exercise's rules. Right now Izuku is seen returning home. He considers how his training, particularly his martial arts training, has paid off in making his dream a reality. Izuku is able to reflect on his training experiences under each of his instructors. Izuku's training included a lesson on how to throw a punch, which is the first thing a hero should learn. Relive Izuku Midoriya's first 2 years of training at the Golden Temple. Izuku is seen using weighted boxing gloves to punch a punching bag. "Come on, Izuku. Remember head movement so you won't be hit in the face so much. You gotta keep going because your opponent will push you, so you need to push back hard. Your offense needs to be devastating. Every punch is accurate and dangerous every time you hit Emmett," an athletic man dressed in traditional U.S. military training gear said. The legendary Jack Dempsey was pleased with Izuku's commitment to his training as he punched and stepped more forcefully, saying, "Yes sir, Coach Dempsey." Izuku studied hard under Jack Dempsey, picking up his style of boxing and hand-to-hand combat. He began to learn as much as he could, absorbing techniques that are rarely emphasized by contemporary hand-to-hand combat experts. Training his body to be in fighting condition for his age, which helps him develop his fighting skills and instincts. During his 2 years of training under Jack Dempsey, Izuku had beaten up a number of bullies who were trying to beat him up because he was unique. These bullies were either lone wolves who wanted to feel powerful or members of gangs. The end of the flashback. Izuku recalls receiving instruction from Jack Dempsey on how to fight both on the street and in combat. Izuku is aware that some of Jack's lessons were outdated, but they are still useful in direct combat. Unaware of the observers following him, Izuku strolls down a dimly lit alley. While strolling, Izuku notices a man running a store on the corner of the alley that sells protein shakes and sports equipment for the oddball. He recalls what he was told about his physicality by one of his teachers. Flashback to 2.5 years ago at the Golden Temple. Thanks to some of his martial arts instructors, Izuku was astounded by how his body and physique had transformed into a classical all-around athlete. Izuku heard a man wearing modern training gear chuckle and remarked, "Wow, I didn't know training here could turn me into an athletic specimen." Well, actually your anabolic level has increased due to the high ambient energy here. It revitalized your cellular makeup to help purify your body of any unnecessary ailments so you could grow and develop as you train here, said the man as he gazed at Izuku. Izuku looked at the man and asked, "Who might you be?" "My name is Tiberius Angelo of America. I'm of a proud ancestry that dates back to the Byzantine Empire. I will be teaching you the subject of all-around athletics, fighting tactics and techniques, and lastly athletic science. Hopefully I can help you get into all-around shape in no time," said Tiberius as Izuku looks at him with disbelief gaze. Under Tiberius, Izuku trains his body in all-around athletics for almost flawless performance in the months before the UA exam. Ranging from weightlifting and rock climbing to the strenuous activities of parkour, gymnastics, swimming, unarmed combat, wrestling, and horseback riding. Izuku gains a thorough understanding of the significance of every athletic science from Tiberius, including biomechanics, biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, and psychology, as he develops into a strong athlete. The flashback is over. Izuku sees two men harassing an elderly couple as he approaches them after leaving the dim alleyway that leads to his house. Izuku looked at the two men and said, "Excuse me, sir, are these two bothering you?" As Izuku turned to face the men, one of them said, "Mind your own business, kid." Izuku turned back to the elderly and apologized, "I was talking to them." When the old man notices that the man is swinging at the greenet, he yells, "Watch yourself, young man." Izuku counters with a counterpunch that knocks the man back. As he and his friend prepare to rumble, the man said, "Kid, you messed up. Now, me and my buddy here are some of the toughest street fighters in town." As the one from earlier charges at Izuku, he is struck by a rising axe handle that knocks him unconscious. The toughest in the town, huh? I don't see it," Izuku said. When Izuku dodges the other man's two hooks, he charges at him and throws two elbows at his chest, knocking the air out of it. Izuku finishes with a frontal snap kick that knocks the man unconscious. Izuku shook the old man's hand and said, "Thank you, sir, for the heads up. These two claim to be the toughest in town, but it looks like they are the most gutless in town." The elderly man remarked, "No problem, son. You know how to handle yourself in the street. Back in my day I would have taught these men a hard lesson myself." Izuku laughed at the man's spirit and expressed gratitude for his history. As he made his way home, Izuku said, "Well, have a nice night you too." Snipe turned to face Vlad King and remarked, "Well, I reckon that boy is made of gold, for he's a real ideal of a hero, don't you say, Vlad King?" "Yes, he certainly is. I am equally amazed by Izuku's fighting prowess, but from what I can tell he doesn't seem to be going to anyone who could give him that type of power. We'll keep watch for tomorrow in case something clicks on our student. Right now let's head home and visit those two places undercover tomorrow," Vlad replied because Snipe agreed to this strategy. The following day, Izuku can be seen moving with acrobatic grace on the city's rooftops. Momo, who is also traveling through the city, meets Izuku. As they enter, the two land in front of the gate. A curious Momo looks at the greenet in question and asks, "So Izuku, tell me, where did you learn those tactics and skills?" Mina approaches them from behind, curious as well. As he tries to hide the fact that some of the greatest fighters in human history taught him his combat skills, Izuku said, "Well, 7 old men and women, all of them friends from different countries that had taught me a great deal of my combat skills. They passed away after I was done with my training, but they left me a parting gift." Looking at the greenet in question, Momo remarked, "Well, whoever they are, they have turned you into quite the one-man army." Mina stepped between the two as they entered the building and said, "Yeah, I'll say." Mina looked at Izuku and said, "So Izuku, that hero outfit you had, I was meaning to ask what's the idea behind it." Momo was also curious. Well, it was due to some of the teachers and their countries of origins. One of my teachers named Cthulhu, who is named after the great-granddaughter of Genghis Khan. She taught me about the important martial skills a hero would need, ranging from wrestling, athleticism, battle tactics, archery and marksmanship. I was inspired by her ancestors' armor and gear. I most of all loved how Mongol helmets were designed, seeing a past as nomads and a warrior people. From a man by the name Tiberius Angelo, I had gotten the idea of the vest from his Greek Hellenistic ancestry of his Byzantine ancestors after he trained me in Pamachon, fighting tactics and athletic sciences that had helped me train for the entrance exam. The gear came from a ninja master who descends from Hanzo Hattori named Hanzo Genryu, who trained me in ninjutsu and swordsmanship, Tiansu, a martial artist who practiced both Chinese and Tibetan martial arts, and a descendant of Anthony Joseph Drexel Biddle Sr. named Joseph Felix, taught me a refinement of his ancestors' military close-quarters combat methods and tactics. Explained Izuku, Momo and Mina, who are shocked by how highly trained Izuku is. Momo thought, very strong and well-trained. What are you, Izuku Midoriya? Mina thought the same thing about the greenette. Izuku, for his part, reassesses the material of his armor to consider using more pliable materials as the three of them walk into the school and head to class. Izuku also considers incorporating a Tonfa-style stun baton into his arsenal. Everything about the classes went smoothly. Izuku is the most skilled martial artist Izova has ever encountered, so she is still intrigued by the greenette's skills and training. According to what Izova has observed about Izuku, he is extremely well prepared for combat, and he wanted to see how adaptable the young Izuku is. Fortunately, he will travel to the USJ on Thursday. In the interim, Izova could discover the specifics of Izuku's ability to be unaffected by his quirk and transform into a lion, possessing superhuman strength along with other abilities and attributes he may possess. For her part, Momo is more drawn to the greenette because of his incredible talent, his lovely smile that can soothe her, and his diligence in achieving his goals. Momo and Mina shared a similar admiration for the greenette's diligence. As the students conversed among themselves, Izova said, "Okay class, I need you all to decide on a class president and a class vice president." Izuku warned Kaminari and Mineta about the perverse nature of wanting to be class president and vice president when they were of the opposite sex. Kirishima looked at Izuku and Momo and said, "Hey, why not have them be class president and vice president?" Jiro expressed her opinion by saying, "Yeah, they are intelligent and among the most influential in the class." Tenya explained why he didn't like the rude boy by saying, "Oh, I think we need a vote and need to wait as everyone isn't here. As you can see, Bakugo is suspended, so we need to make the vote fair." Alarms are heard before they can finish their conversation, and everyone quickly leaves the room to find a swarm of reporters hurrying through the gate. The alarms are causing panic among the students, but Izuku quickly stops them all with a roar based on a lion. As everyone returned to their individual classrooms, Izuku said, "Calm down everyone, it's just reporters outside, we aren't under attack. It was a false alarm." Izuku's ability to assume leadership and bring everyone under control and calm has greatly impressed Izova. However, he removes this fact from his mind in order to evaluate what transpired. Gazing at the reporters who were instructed to depart by Vlad King and Cementos, he notices that the alarm went off abruptly and that the gate had somehow been opened. Though he needs to be certain, he believes it was nothing. Izova gave Izuku no room to argue as he left the room to look into the matter. "Class, I need to see why the alarm went off, so I will appoint Izuku Midoriya and Tenya Iida class president and vice class president. Listen to them and behave." Curious about what to do with her greenette crush, Mina asked, "So Izuku, what should we do before Izova gets back?" Mina shook her head in shock as Izuku said, "Well, I was thinking of helping out on some homework if any of you need any help." Momo, intrigued by her mutual crush, said, "Hey Izuku, I was meaning to ask, what is your quirk exactly?" Kirishima said, "Yeah, you have superhuman strength, and a lion quirk of sorts, so what is your quirk, dude?" Izuku was thinking of a way to refute his classmates' assessment of his skills. Izuku said, "That is a secret that you would have to solve with this riddle." Everyone was staring at him when Iida asked, "What riddle is that?" Izuku also asked, "What is the most fundamental and integral part of any culture that ties a nation to the past for it to have a future?" Everyone was considering his question. Momo and Mina are working hard to figure out what Izuku's peculiarity is. Alongside Izova is in the office to investigate the cause of the alarm. He learns that the office was somehow broken into by an unidentified attacker who was able to do it during the day. The school is full of heroes. Izova examines the video captured by the room's camera, only to discover that, prior to the robbery starting, the camera was somehow blocked by paint. Then, In order to blend in with the throng of reporters, the robber set off the alarms. Whoever did this has a professional signature, damn it. Looking over the footage in the room, Izova thought, the suspect had to have insightful knowledge of our security system and where we store information on the students, given how he or she got in. Izova notices that the room is 14 stories above the ground. Izova looks at the ground where the thief might have entered through the window. As he made his way back to the classroom, Izova thought, interesting, whatever quirk was used, the individual seems to have scaled or flown up to this floor without any detection. Alongside Momo after school let out for the day, Momo spent her time attempting to solve Izuku's puzzle. She glances at the technology, but it wasn't that. That wasn't it, according to research on art. As she worked on her homework, she went to reflect on the riddle question because she was having trouble answering it. Alongside Mina was experiencing the same outcome as her competitor. As she looks at her homework, she is also unable to find the answer at this time. While reviewing her algebra, Mina wondered, what could this riddle be? The riddle is causing problems for a lot of their classmates. Skip ahead to the following Wednesday. Class 1A has not yet been able to solve Izuku's riddle. Even the more intelligent students, like Tenya Iida, Momo Yayorozu, and Shoto Todoroki, are still unable to solve the puzzle. Bakugo was informed about the riddle's topic and found it difficult to figure out the solution. Izova informs the class about tomorrow's field trip to a rescue training facility. In order to comprehend the Greenet's skills, Izova had also discovered this puzzle. When he tried his hand, he discovered that the response was inaccurate. Momo and Mina are currently strolling the streets together. They had made the decision to set aside their emotions in order to cooperate in solving the puzzle. To browse books on the instrumental components of cultures, they went to a nearby library. They quickly arrive at a conclusion that links every culture to the essential component of all cultures. When Mina and Momo finally discovered the solution, Mina remarked, "So that's what it is." When Momo saw the solution in a book that had provided them with the information they required, she said, "Yes, I can't believe we missed it. It was right in front of us." Time skip Thursday. As they board the bus to the training center, Izuku said, "Okay everyone, we move in an orderly file, no pushing," looking at Bakugo. Inquiring about his sensei, Izuku said, "So sensei, what training center are we going to be heading to?" Izova looked at the curious Greenet and said, "Well, it's a center that specializes in rescue operations in different climates and terrains. That simulates the real deal." Mina grinned triumphantly and said, "Hey Izuku, me and Momo had figured out your riddle." Izuku smirked at the two and said, "Oh, and what is it?" Momo looked at Izuku, who was grinning, and said, "The instrumental element of all culture is religion and the mythology surrounding it." Izuku said, "You are correct. Now that you have solved the riddle I will tell you. The truth is I don't have a quirk." Mina laughed, thinking it was a joke, and everyone stared at him in shock. Mina said, "Ah, good one Izuku, that was good, but seriously, what is your quirk?" Izuku calmly looked at her, indicating that she was serious. Tsuyu looked at Izuku and said, "There is no way you have a quirk. You were unable to do all that stuff in the entrance exam and in the combat exercise." Izuku's cryptic words further confused his classmates. "Well, that is due to something I discovered, or rather rediscovered." As Izuku goes on, Momo looks at him questioningly and asks, "What do you mean?" In places such as Tibet, Mongolia, Siberia, India and other places there have been those who have discovered secrets to superhuman abilities and powers that are not like what you have seen today. Shamans from the Americas, Mongolia, Siberia, adepts from Tibet, and sages from India and China. They all have discovered secrets about the human body and what the human spirit can do that no one has ever learned of. Izuku clarified because everyone is interested in what Izuku is stating. According to Momo, who comprehends what he's saying. Incredulous at what Izuku is suggesting about his abilities, Momo says, "But this is just mythology and superstition. Not a real hard scientific fact." He then commands his ki to form a small ethereal-like lion as it moves towards Momo, who looks at it in shock as it nuzzles her faces. Izova uses his quirk on Izuku to cancel his quirk but finds that Izuku's power isn't a quirk but what he learned. Who says that it is just stories? Men of science who only studied the physical nature of the world to try and disprove something that is beyond their comprehension when it comes to looking into something that has been tapped into by the ancients. No one can truly say, even the most well-studied scientist. Izova-sensei, I see that you're using your quirk to try and cancel mine. It's not a quirk to cancel, it's something of a power that predates all quirks. Izuku said as he drove out the lion. Iida looked at the Greenet in question and said, "Incredible. Everyone does, too." Bakugo gazes at Izuku with intense rage and jealousy. Shoto is astonished by Izuku's abilities. Momo asked, gazing curiously at her crush, so what can you do with this power? As they arrive at the training center, which happens to be the USJ, Izuku says, well, you have seen some of it but not all of it. Everyone is staring at him curiously. As they leave the building, Izuku uses his animal keen senses to sense that something is wrong with the doors and the atmosphere inside. The Space Hero 13 welcomes them. Ochako can't wait to see her hero. 13 said, welcome to the USJ. Now some of you think this is the United Studios of Japan, but this is the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, a simulation center to simulate rescues in different environments. Everyone was staring at the site, not realizing that Izuku was sensing what was going to happen. Izuku soon noticed disturbances in the air as various villains began to appear. As Izuku beat Aizoba to the punch, Kirishima remarked, ah cool, they even have life like robots. Momo and Mina stare at Izuku's eyes, which flash hazel with slits, and he prepares to fight, saying, those aren't robots, those are real villains, we are under attack. Aizoba declared, 13 protect the students, as he launched himself into combat. Izuku, standing back to back with Aizoba, leaps over her with amazing athleticism 13 before she holds back. As Izuku grinned, Aizoba remarked, Izuku, get back, these are professionals, they aren't like those thugs and gang members. Izuku said, well, I'm not a normal UA student. As the two prepared to fight. Before long, a fight breaks out as villains charge at Izuku and Aizoba while they repel the group. As the class stands their ground against the villains who managed to get past 13, 13 said, Tenya Ida, I need you to go get help. There is an access door underneath the urban environment rescue area. Ida nodded and ran there. As his fellow students struggle for their lives in settings that genuinely support their peculiarities, Ida manages to get through the access door and leave the building in search of assistance. Izuku goes on a rampage, shocking the leader of the villain group in question who had just arrived, and defeats 15 villains with bare hands, rendering them unconscious. The antagonist had to be in the same age range as the class. His attire seems to consist of leather and hands. Beside him stands a man who seems to be composed of black smoke or mist and is dressed in a sharp suit without a jacket. As he watched Izuku kick a defeated villain in the direction of a small group of villains, the leader exclaimed, wow, who's the level 25 player? Yes, Shigaraki, it would seem to be one of the students, and he seems to have highly advanced combat skills to be taking apart the villains, replied the mist man in question. As soon as many members of Class 1A are abruptly teleported to different parts of the USJ, leaving Izuku, Aizoba, and 13 to battle the villains, Shigaraki waved his hand and said, no matter, let's take care of those level ones and Kurogiri get Nomu to take care of the beat-em-up duo. As the number of villains increases, Aizoba, Izuku, and 13 are forced to contend with them one after another. While 13 battles the mysterious Kurogiri, who appears to possess the ability to create portals, Aizoba and Izuku are battling a number of villains. Before Kurogiri uses her own abilities to render 13 incapacitated, the two battles seem to come to a standstill. As Aizoba eliminates the remainder of the attacking force, Izuku punches Kurogiri before he can react. Kurogiri teleports and flips up, landing directly next to Shigaraki, who yells and looks angry at the greenhead tearing about his forces. As Kurogiri teleports a creature with black skin, a bird's head shape, and an exposed brain, she says, bring out the Nomu. Shigaraki gave the order, Nomu, kill these two. As the named Nomu charged at the severely defeated Aizoba. Nomu is about to stomp out Aizoba when Izuku intervenes with a flying side kick that launches Nomu 25 meters into the air, injuring Aizoba. Izuku turns to face the severely injured Aizoba. Izuku rolls out of the way as Nomu lunges at him with a punch before he can say anything to Aizoba. Class 1A, who managed to get out of their zones, observes the impending conflict. Bon Jovi's, living on a prayer. Nomu and Izuku fight ferociously. In order to match the Nomu's animalistic fighting style, Izuku uses his wrestling and Pamachan skills to launch a wrestler-style attack on them. They are trading vicious blows with one another. Izuku puts Nomu on the defensive by using his lion spirit powers. As Shigaraki yells, the two soon separate as the Nomu appears to be recovering from his attacks. Stupid level 25, no matter how hard you try you can't defeat this Nomu, it was made to kill All Might. It has both shock absorption and regeneration, as Izuku begins to use more of his ki to accomplish his task after learning that this Nomu was actually something that was created. The two resume fighting when Izuku unleashes a powerful, explosive blast at the Nomu, blowing off its arm. He then transforms into a lion and leaps on top of the creature, tearing at it with its claws before aiming for its jugular, slicing it open as it begins to bleed out. Finally, Izuku uses the roar of the lion to blow off the head entirely, creating a hole in the building, killing it right away. As soon as the heroes arrived with all might through the holes, Shigaraki exclaimed, "No fair, no fair, you cheated, you cheater." Shigaraki said, "This isn't over, I will get you next time, level 25. All Might approached Izuku, who appeared a little worn out from his fight with Nomu, while Kurogiri teleported him and himself away before the heroes could capture them. All Might looked at Izuku and asked, "Are you alright, young Midoriya?" He nodded and said, "Yes, I am fine, but Mr. Izova needs his hurt." Izova was being seen by some medics when Izuku approached. As Izuku nods in comprehension as he is brought to the hospital for treatment, Izova remarked, "You are a trouble child, a maverick with unique skills that I am happy to have in my class. Hopefully I can make a real hero out of you yet." As he consoles them, Izuku is glopped from behind by Momo and Mina, who have never experienced fear in their lives. Izuku thought, well, this is a new journey I will experience for many years, as Mina and Momo checked on their shared boy crush to make sure he was okay, only to see his battle-related wounds heal. In a meeting room with several high-ranking heroes and Police Chief Kenji Suragame, Izuku Midoriya is having a memorable day. Since Izova had informed them that Izuku had told them that the Greenette's abilities were of a non-quirk origin, they themselves had wished to comprehend Izuku's abilities. Principal Nezu looked at Izuku curiously and said, "So young Midoriya, you are telling us that your special abilities are a result of training in secrets lost to humanity for centuries. That has allowed you to do these things." "Yes, you are correct." Izuku sipped his tea. Cementos was looking at Izuku with curiosity when he said, "So that could explain why Izawa's quirk couldn't work on you." Nezu nodded in comprehension and replied, "Yes, and your ability to send out powerful energy attacks." Kenji looked at Izuku critically and said, "But what we are here to ask is, what went through your mind when you killed that villain?" Izuku continued, "Well, it was clear, because he wasn't a real person. Everyone was staring at him inquisitively. Well, to put it in simpler terms, that Nomu was a person that was artificially created. The reason how I know this is due to me being able to sense the spiritual energy of individuals, whether they are sick, excited or sad. I can sense them. I can also sense when someone is sick or dying. When I was sensing the Nomu, I sensed that it was unnatural in its biology as when I struck it. It didn't seem to cry out in pain or feel any impairment in its body when I hit it." Izuku, according to Kenji. Everyone is impressed by Izuku's understanding of the human body, and Recovery Girl confirms this. He could have been on painkillers. Izuku shakes his head no, saying, "No, painkillers would have caused slower reflexes even in a person with super speed or agility. It fought to the best of its ability without any issues." Then All Might asks. As Recovery Girl is intrigued by the idea of Izuku's abilities, she asked, "How is it that you are able to heal at a rapid rate?" "It is due to my use of Ki and Hammon. I am able to heal at near instantaneous speeds thanks to my access to said spiritual energies." Looking at Izuku, Kenji thought, "This boy is looking to be an extraordinary prospect in this school." Then he asked. Izuku responded, "That is because some of my teachers are some of the greatest of their time and masters of their fields." The police chief was astounded by the Greenette's fighting prowess. "Well, this is impressive, but how can you explain your fighting skills? You fought like a professional martial artist and expert street fighter." Izuku nodded in agreement as Kenji said, "Well, since you did it in self-defense, you're not in trouble." As he left the office, Kenji remarked, "Well, I will be off. Have a pleasant day, Izuku. I hope to see you in the future in hero work." Another location in Mustafa, lost artifacts from the 17th century are being transported by a team of shipping movers from Wallachia, which is now Romania, to a museum gallery. The crates themselves seem to be emitting a darkness from many centuries ago, which makes the movers uncomfortable as they move them inside the warehouse. As the remaining items are moved inside the museum warehouse for study and cataloging for the exhibits, one mover asked, "Hey Toshi, do you feel anything off about these packages we're delivering?" The other mover turned to face him and responded, "Yeah, Taki, I understand your reason for feeling the way this stuff creeps me out in the wrong way. Especially from what the client said about where this was from." The man said, "Yeah, Romania, the home of all that superstition mumbo-jumbo. I can see why your fears, but come on, it's probably nothing but some guy with an early version of quirk. It's probably not true. There is no such thing as vampires." While moving the heaviest craft that contained a sort of sarcophagus, he was unaware of how false he was. As they are done, one of the movers cuts his hand on a crowbar while opening the crate to reveal a beautifully designed sarcophagus. On the middle pierce, which has a western dragon shape in the middle, the man's blood spills over. A bruiser of a man, one of the movers, tells his injured moving partner. Unaware of what is going to happen, the injured man approaches the truck to retrieve the medical kit and says, "Hey buddy, go patch yourself up." The med kit is at the back of the cabin of the truck. Red glowing eyes shine through the misty air of the well-made coffin as the sarcophagus slowly opens. After finishing, the movers leave as night falls, fearing that a sinister evil will reappear. An elderly man with claws and fangs attacks a guard who is approaching without realizing he is in grave danger. The guard is screaming for help when the figure bites him, completely draining him of blood and strength. The figure then gradually regenerates into his former self, a man with black hair and grizzled facial hair. He hears the sounds of additional guards approaching as he reaches for a sword with a serrated design and gives it multiple twirls. 2 more guards soon arrive to look into their colleagues' noises. He's on the ground when they look. Before they could check on him, the figure attacked them and literally disarmed the guard who had gone for his gun, causing him to scream in agony before the vampire figure decapitated him. The guard said, "No, please don't kill me." The figure looked at the man, sensing a strange language from him. The figure's eyes glowed bright red as he met the man's eyes. As he falls to the ground during a seizure, the man feels a flood of information pouring out of his head. As he left the area, the figure thought, so I am not in Wallachia or Europe for that matter. I am in Asia in the nation of Japan. This land will soon be under Dracula's control, the now exposed Dracula Prince of Darkness thought. The following day, Izuku and his mother are having breakfast when he notices a news report about a violent incident at the Mustafa's World History Museum gallery that involves 2 guards who have died and 1 who is mentally ill. Izuku has a strange feeling about it, as though he senses that something sinister has entered Japan. How mistaken he is. He is reading European folklore. Izuku returns to training without knowing how many months he will have left over from the break. Izuku, on the other hand, feels that his personality needs to be improved, so he trains to enhance his beast abilities. Another location in Mustafa, a human-shaped Dracula is seen moving through a library. The disguised vampire king looked at the elderly woman in question and said, "Excuse me ma'am, I am looking for a book on Japanese history and world history." The woman pointed to the history section of the library, and the man bowed in gratitude before reading up on the history of the New World. So it starts, Dracula thought as he started learning about Japanese history up to the present. At the police station, the chief of police is being briefed on the circumstances surrounding the History Gallery murder. The victim's autopsy report is being shown to Kenji Suragame. He had revealed to the blood hero that one of the 2 dead victims had had his blood drained from his body, leaving only faint fang marks, and had summoned Vlad King to see if he could provide any insight into the killings. Vlad King, on the other hand, concluded that many crimes committed by a blood quirk user aren't as quick, vicious, and effective as what was demonstrated after witnessing numerous individuals with blood-related quirks. This is getting strange. Izuku Midoriya had supernatural abilities at first, and now he's a killer with swordsmanship skills and an unidentified blood quirk. What comes next? As he perused some documents pertaining to a particular person of a well-known criminal type, Kenji had this thought. He is unaware that he will be dealing with yet another criminal massacre. In other parts of Mustafa at night as Count Dracula attacks a group of Yakuza led by Kaichisaki, also known as Overhaul because of his quirk Overhaul, screams, gunfire, and quirk sounds can be heard inside a warehouse. But instead of a hero or villain, Kai is up against the Prince of Darkness. A young girl named Eri sneaks out of the warehouse and flees into the city while he and his troops are occupied with fighting him. Alongside Izuku, when Izuku hears cars screeching as they stop, he can be seen moving across the rooftops. Izuku turns to see a bewildered Eri running through Mustafa's streets while a speeding car rushes in her direction. Acting quickly, Izuku transforms into a lion and leaps down to pick Eri up with his jaws, taking care not to injure her as he places her safely. Izuku asked, "Are you all right?" as Eri stared in wonder at the golden lion in front of her. Izuku surprised the girl by changing back into his human form, and she nodded. As he picks her up, Izuku can tell by the look in her eyes that she has had a terrible experience. Izuku said, "Come on, I'll take you to my home so we can find your family. You shouldn't be out here in the dark." Eri feels safer with Izuku and isn't afraid of him like she was with Overhaul. Izuku then jumps onto the building rooftops and starts walking home. Back in the warehouse, Dracula can be seen sipping blood from Overhaul and his men's battered and shattered bodies. They fought hard, but the Prince of Darkness's strength and unrelenting rage, combined with his vampire magics, were too strong for them, and he was able to defeat both Overhaul and the quirk users in his army. As each of his bidden victims started to change into vampires, Dracula uttered, "Rise my children of the night, we have work to do." Our numbers must be greater than what it was for a new breed of vampire will be born. They then bow to him before heading out into the night to gather as many as possible before the next day dawns. As Dracula drank the last of one of the Overhaul's lieutenant's blood in a wineglass, he thought, my kingdom will soon find new ground to stand on. Having Izuku the following day, as Izuku and Eri enter the police station, they discover that it is bustling with officers, some of whom are wearing tactical gear, swarming the streets. Izuku approaches the receptionist. Excuse me sir, I am here to file a report for a missing child bulletin for this little girl, Izuku replied. As Izuku and Eri sat in the waiting area, the clerk said, yes, please sign this and wait in the waiting area. An officer will be with you shortly. For her part, Eri is playing the PSP Zeta game Wind Beast, which is about a brave wind-based beast battling an evil dictator and his army of super mutants. Because the wind beast in the game resembles a lion like Izuku, she enjoys it. An officer soon meets the two. Izuku shook his hand and said, hello, I'm Officer Toshin Kenta. I will be filling out a report for you. For the aforementioned report, they are seated at his desk. As Izuku started to tell his story, the officer said, okay, now start from the top on how you found this munchkin. At the same police station, Kenji is seen with the hero Sir Night-Eye, his sidekicks Bubblegirl and Centipeder, who has been stalking one Overhaul's warehouse, and his proto-copyright Ga copyright Mirio Togeda. Kenji asked, so you're saying Overhaul has been killed in some kind of way by the killer of the History Gallery murders? Sir Night-Eye nodded before continuing. As Kenji appeared concerned, Sir Night-Eye remarked, yes, and the figure from my visions seems to be growing a following from these victims. I don't know how, but from what has been seen he is growing it from the dead. Kenji asked, do we have a name and face behind this figure? Sir Night-Eye shook his head. No, all we have is an emblem that appears to be of Eastern European origin. Sir Night-Eye replied, displaying the dragon's emblem. Kenji examines it curiously after seeing it on the sarcophagus from the museum gallery's medieval to early Renaissance Wallachia exhibit. As Kenji gets excited and asks, why is he involved? Sir Night-Eye responded, that's not all. In the vision also showed a student you may have met, a young man named Izuku Midoriya of Class 1A. The mystery my old mentor All Might has told me about. It is due to the power that he has that may solve this case and most likely stop something of unholy proportions from spreading from Mustafa. Kenji nodded, knowing he would probably receive criticism for nodding in agreement. He dispatches Izuku to his house. Izuku soon enters the room with Eri in his arms, and an officer remarks that Kenji is taken aback by how quickly Izuku was retrieved. Here is Izuku Midoriya, sir. He was here filing a missing child's report for the girl that is with him. Hello again, Chief Suragame, Izuku said, nodding to the police chief along with Eri, who receives a cute squeal from Bubblegirl and another female officer. Sir Night-Eye looked at the greenette and said, so you are Izuku Midoriya. I have heard much from you from All Might. I must say you are an incredible individual to have such an unknown power. Izuku looked at All Might's former partner and said, yes, and I have heard much about you, Sir Night-Eye. Your detective work and skills are admirable and comparable to Eraserhead in some ways. Izuku shakes hands with Mirio, who says, so you're Izuku Midoriya, the kid with a power that isn't a quirk. I thought you would be bigger. Izuku grinned and said, nice to meet you, Mirio, and it is nice to meet you, Bubblegirl. I hope you are doing fine. As Sir Night-Eye speaks, Bubblegirl smiles at the greenette for recognizing her. Izuku, we had called you here for your help in solving a case involving the killings at the gallery and the more recent disappearance of a Yakuza leader known as Overhaul. Izuku, I have reason that you may be the key in solving this case and stopping a possible threat to Mustafa in Japan. Here is an emblem of sorts of heraldry design. We believe it will shine some light on this person in particular, said Sir Night-Eye as he demonstrated the symbol that represents the dragon. Izuku cross-examines the symbol after reading 2 of his books. Izuku looks at them and says something they would find unbelievable, confirming something they would soon regret. They are all in shock as Izuku looks at them and says, well, your suspect is one Vlad Tepes of Wallachia, better known as Count Dracula. Sir Night-Eye, Centipeder, and Kenji are the first to notice this. Izuku isn't playing around, as Mirio and Bubblegirl quickly realize after glancing at him. Bubblegirl exclaimed, what do you mean he's real? She was extremely shocked that the Prince of Darkness could actually exist. Izuku clarified, yes, he is very real. Dracula was once the warrior voivode of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes. Having a reputation for methodical savagery, Vlad became a great warrior king of his land, but his methods soon adopted the same tactics of his hated enemies the Ottomans that made him fearful among even his own people. It is believed that he was killed in a battle against the Turks, but his body was never found. But here is one truth behind his fate. Vlad renounced God and became who you know today. Kenji asked, "How do we catch this man?" as Izuku gave him a red-faced look. "This man isn't a man. He is the very night you don't catch him you must destroy him. For this is not a simple villain that you face. You face a man turned predatory killing machine who has given into the very darkness of the night. For it will take your utmost skill, courage and experience to overcome and destroy him. For even Tartarus will not hold him, even the quirked heroes cannot control him. He is Dracula, son of the dragon." Everyone is aware of the seriousness of the Greenet. Izuku is not looking at Eri with dread but with sort of optimism. Bubble Girl, who is interested in those who are transformed into vampires, asked, "What are we to do about his victims?" Izuku said, "Take them down hard, only stake them when necessary. Come on Eri, I need to get you to my house. I have a feeling the night will be long and hard." Everyone turned to see a dark cloud that blocked the sun's light coming in from over the horizon. "Chief Suragame, I would suggest that you call every officer and let them know of a situation of unknown perps. Let them know not to engage them and only observe them only if they get too close tell them to fire. While I go take Eri home it's going to be a long night," Izuku said as he headed home with Eri according to what Kenji suggested. As Sir Night-Eye went to find heroes who would be suitable for such a situation against the Prince of Darkness, he thought, that young man has the makings of a hero with that sense of danger and caution. Alongside Izuku as the storm cloud moves forward, Izuku and Eri are sprinting as hard as they can toward his house. When Izuku arrives home, his mother greets him as he opens the door. Concerned for her son, Inko asked, "Izuku, welcome home, is everything alright?" When Inko notices the urgency in her son, she asks, "What will you be doing?" "Helping out with said evil as Sir Night-Eye told me I was involved in some way to deal with said evil. I can't let it run wild. Mom, we have trouble. I want you to stay here with Eri and lock the doors and windows and whatever you see don't believe it," Izuku said as he went to his room, took out a large bag of sorts from up under his bed, and left his room. To console his mother, Izuku gives her a peck on the cheek and gives Eri a hug. As Izuku smiles at his mother and leaves after she complies with his request and locks the door, Inko says, "Izuku honey, take care of yourself and return to me safely." "Lionheart," was Eri's response when she noticed the lion emblem on Izuku's wall. As he calls for Momo and Mina, Izuku sees them walking up the street as he leaves. They turn to see Izuku approaching them. Momo looked at the Greenet in question and said, "Ah Izuku, how are you?" Mina smiled at Izuku and he smiled back, saying, "Hey Izuku, how are you doing?" Momo sensed something strange about Izuku and asked, "Izuku, are you okay?" "Yes, I am okay, but it's important that you get inside. There are things that go bump in the night that are stirring and I don't want you two to get hurt." "Pretty good you two, but listen, there is something that is going to happen this night and possibly many more. I need you to be on guard and head home. Have your windows and doors locked. Whatever you do don't look out into the night," Izuku said, and Momo and Mina nodded grudgingly. Izuku is making his way to Sir Night-Eye's agency headquarters in order to reunite with them. As they examined Izuku's form, Momo and Mina thought, "Be careful, Izuku." Izuku quickly reaches Sir Night-Eye's hero agency by using his free running abilities. Entering Izuku leads up to the agency's meeting room. Izuku sees Sir Night-Eye as he enters. As the rabbit heroine Miriko, the ninja hero Edgeshot, the dragon heroine Ryukyu, and the cowboy hero Snipe stood in front of Izuku, Sir Night-Eye said, "Izuku, good you're here. Everyone, this is the young man who will help with our situation. Izuku, I would like to introduce you to the strike team that will help us combat the threat in question." Izuku said, "Nice to meet you all, I am Izuku Midoriya." Miriko said in a tomboyish tone, "So you're the kid I've been hearing about with special abilities that aren't quirk-related. I thought you would be taller." Izuku said cheerfully, "Well, things aren't what they appear to be." Miriko grinned at Izuku's comment as a girl in his age group approached him with long periwinkle hair. "So what kind of powers do you have that can compete with a quirk?" the girl asked, glancing at Izuku as he surprised some of the heroes by changing into his lion form and letting the girl and Bubble Girl stroke his fur, which made him purr as he enjoyed the touch but quickly changed back. Izuku blushes when the girl says, "Wow, your fur is really soft yet strong." Ryukyu reprimanded Nejire, saying, "Nejire, it's rude not to introduce yourself to someone you're working with, especially seeing as he's your junior." Izuku turns to face Sir Night-Eye and asks, "Excuse me Sir Night-Eye, I need to change before you get on our venture. Do you have a room for me to change?" Night-Eye gestures to a changing room down the corner on the right, and Izuku responds, "Oh sorry, I am Nejire Hado, nice to meet you Izuku." Izuku goes to change into the appropriate attire for this circumstance. He examines his equipment and determines that it is all necessary. They all give him curious looks as he returns, and Izuku leaves wearing armor resembling that of a samurai and ninja gear, but with modern soldier designs mixed in. Night Eye remarked, "I see that your masters have given you something for such an occasion as secretive as this." Izuku nodded and turned to face the other heroes. Izuku interrupted Edgeshot to say, "Well, Sir Night Eye hasn't told you yet. We're dealing with an ancient evil that has been known throughout the modern world." Edgeshot said, "Yes, Count Dracula," realizing that Izuku wasn't kidding. Miriko then said, "Oh come on, how bad can Count Dracula be? He's probably like the movies." Izuku pulled out a tapestry depicting the Prince of Darkness himself in terrifying armor and gear, standing as an imposing figure with a sword of terrifying design. While Snipe whistled at the King of Vampires tapestry, Edgeshot asked, "Does that look like an Eastern European gentleman to you, Mirikyo?" As Izuku spoke up, Snipe said, "So how are we going to find this fellow? Dracula could be anywhere." Izuku uses tantric hand signs to channel energy into his hands before placing 2 fingers to Miriko's head first, quickly enveloping her in white light as he says, "We find the patterns of his victims and follow them back to Dracula's lair." Curious, Miriko asked Izuku, "Wow, what did you do to me?" Izuku performed the same hand signs and gave the others the same energy, saying, "It's an ability that I have that allows me to empower allies, enhancing and imbuing them with sacred spiritual energy. This should keep those vampires from turning any of you." Night Eyes sensed the spiritual energy around him and said, "Incredible young Midoriya, you may have saved this nation from a terrible threat to bad, and no one will know." Knowing that Chief Tsuragame will probably face consequences for his vigilante endeavor today, Izuku said, "Think nothing of it, as Dracula at this time is a threat to the human race as much as Japan. Plus I am not one for glory, just honor and justice." They all nodded as Night Eye said, "Okay, let's move out. The better we find Dracula, the better we can vanquish the Vampire King." Izuku is paired with Edgeshot, Bubble Girl, and Najire, among other heroes. Chief Tsuragame issued a curfew bulletin while they were patrolling the rooftops, warning residents to stay inside their homes for their own safety because there was a terrorist posing a threat to the city and to be on the lookout for any suspicious activity. In order to keep up with Najire, Bubble Girl, and Edgeshot, Izuku is moving on rooftops. Edgeshot inquired, "So Izuku, tell me, how do you know so much about the Prince of Darkness himself?" "My training under my masters had also included information about supernatural beings. One such being was Dracula, while I myself thought that he was simply a myth. The Vampire King happened to be very real." Izuku then goes on to ask, "How is it that he can blanket the skin as he did?" "Yeah, this guy is supposed to be asleep during the day, isn't he?" inquired the Bubble Girl in question. "Yes, but you have to remember Dracula is a unique case. He is able to do things beyond the regular scope of vampires, and due to him making a deal with the devil, he can create control storms to a certain extent. As such, he was able to create cloud coverage to form over Mustafa with relative ease, and mostly used his vampiric magics to lengthen it to possibly longer, creating this long night," Izuku said. The trio is taken aback when Izuku responds, "Not to worry, when Dracula is vanquished, these clouds will dissipate and bring back clear skies." Another location in Mustafa, an unsuspecting victim is shown being attacked by the Prince of Darkness, who then sinks his fangs into him and drains his blood. Immediately after finishing, Dracula smells the air and sees, through one of his subjects' eyes, heroes searching the city, presumably in search of him, as he goes after the weakest member of the group. Izuku's group, that is. Dracula targets the weaker group first, using his other subjects to divert and exhaust the more powerful teams. With Izuku and associates, Izuku shouts as he sees a sizable group of vampires approaching Sir Night Eye and feels a very sinister aura coming their way. As Dracula attacks, Izuku shoves Najire aside and says, "Incoming." Izuku pulls out his own sword and fights Dracula with it. Edgeshot enters as Izuku is ejected. Dracula and the ninja hero engage in a fierce one-on-one battle while Najire uses shockwaves and spiraling energy waves to keep the Prince of Darkness on his toes. Izuku recovers and joins the battle while Bubble Girl distracts Dracula with filthy bubbles. Dracula is hard landed into a neon sign by Izuku as he leaps at him. The skill level of this group surprises the Prince of Darkness. 3 of them seem young to him, but the person who tackles him is more than what first meets the eye. As he throws a piece of debris at Bubble Girl and Najire, knocking them out of the air, and slams Izuku to the ground and discards him, he senses that Edgeshot is by far the more experienced of the 4. Edgeshot then engages him in close quarters combat. As Dracula uses physical strikes in his swordplay, Edge Shot is being put to the test by the more seasoned and experienced Vampire King. Izuku, who has just recovered from being thrown, leaps back in and executes a decisive disarm, rendering Dracula without a weapon. Izuku's weapon is also disarmed by Dracula. In a brutal hand-to-hand fight with Izuku, Dracula draws his clans and injures Edge Shot. When Dracula increases the pressure on his attack, Izuku is forced to defend himself from Dracula's assault by trading fists and claws and making throws. Izuku is frantically keeping up with him as he then uses his concealed blade to stab Dracula in his jugular, causing him to strike him away. Nejire then uses a powerful shockwave to knock Dracula off the building's roof, and Izuku gets up to see how Edge Shot is doing. As Edge Shot answers, Izuku asks, "Edge Shot, are you alright?" As Izuku applies his hammer to Edge Shot's wounds, he says, "Yes, I am fine, but we need to go after him. He is injured and he knows we're after him." He vanished from view before Izuku could pursue him, and even he lost the ability to feel his presence. He vanished, Nejire remarked as Izuku turned to carefully pick up his sword. Izuku responded to Nejire's question, "No, he's not, we need to regroup with the others for the hunt for Dracula's lair." "How?" Izuku asks, pointing to the sword and himself as they radio Sir Night Eye's group. After an hour, time skip, you can see a shirtless Izuku making hand signals and meditating around the sword. He finds Dracula while the heroes wait for him. As Ryukyu watched Izuku continue, she asked inquisitively, "How is this going to find Dracula?" Bubblegirl and Nejire blushed at Izuku's body as he said, "I am using my mind's eye to track Dracula by using his sword as an anchor to the vampire lord." When Izuku sees the location of Dracula's domain and his hiding place, his eyes light up red, and he completes his hand signs before making contact with the sword. The danger they face in Mustafa has been communicated to Izova. A run-in with some of the vampires had taught him the hard way. Fortunately, Izuku was able to rid himself of the vampire plague. Seeing Izuku's form, Izova enters the room dressed as a hero. When Izuku emerges from his trance and sees them staring at him anxiously, Izova is astounded by the sheer number of his hidden talents. Izuku asked, "I know where Dracula's lair is, does anyone have a map?" Chief Tsuragame gave him one, and Izuku marked the location while everyone gasped at the location of the Prince of Darkness's captivity. Izuku nods as everyone prepares for a battle for their lives, and Izova declares, he is in Suicide Fortress. As Izuku answers, Chief Tsuragame says, "Good job, kid, why don't you sit this one out?" Izuku said, "Sorry, Chief Tsuragame, I can't do that, this monster needs to be stopped. While I have no doubts everyone here is an experienced hero. But this is evil incarnate we are dealing with. I must see this creature completely destroyed, or otherwise this cursed night will never end." Chief Tsuragame reluctantly agreed after noticing the courage in his eyes. Izuku then gives the chief and his chosen SAT units the ability to keep this event a secret. As he pulled out his katana and raised it to the sky, Sir Night Eye said, "All right, you all know what's at stake here. The Prince of Darkness must be stopped here. This is an assault of his lair. He's probably waiting for us with foes that won't go down without a fight, so let's take the fight to them." They all let out a rallying cry and hurried out of the room to engage in combat with the Prince of Darkness. At the home of Momo has placed a listening device on Izuku and is listening in. It would be an understatement of the year to discover the existence of the Prince of Darkness. The Ravenette, who had to spend the night with Mina, is terrified for her crush when she learns that Izuku is fleeing to confront him. As they hold hands out of concern for their respective crushes, Momo and Mina think, "Izuku, be careful." Alongside Izuku and the heroes disguised in a strengthened version of his armor, Izuku observes the fortress from the same perspective as the heroes. Miriko laughed when Izuku said, "So, does anyone want to knock on the door?" The gate is destroyed as Ryukyu and Izuku, respectively, shoot out a strong fireball. Soon after, Dracula's army of gargoyles, hellbeasts, and vampires rushes into combat. The first wave is torn apart by the SAT, Ryukyu, Edge Shot, and Izuku, who use ranged fire bullets and blessed arrows to cut down their larger numbers. Soon, more evil forces gather to engage in combat outside the fortress. Extended version of Anvil of Crom. Before any of the heroes can stop him, Izuku drops his bow and charges while the SAT team is reloading. Izuku pulls out two Masamune swords and carves a path through the forces of darkness as if it were nothing. Hell beasts charge at him, but the Greenette cuts them to pieces as he pushes through their defenses. As she kicked a hell beast away, Miriko exclaimed, "Wow, look at that kid go, he's like a juggernaut." Ryukyu, Bubblegirl, and Nejire fought off the gargoyle forces in the air, displaying such bravery. As he uses his bow staff to bat a vampire away, Izova remarked, "That kid is going places." As he decapitates a vampire overhaul attacking him with his overhaul quirk, Sir Night Eyes says, "Good luck, young Midoriya." Dracula is questioning Izuku Midoriya while the heroes engage in combat. As he watched Izuku enter the castle, Dracula remarked, "Ah, a young lion, he is stronger than most, his death will be memorable." Alongside Izuku, Izuku is racing past creatures that are attempting to murder him. Before long, he discovers Dracula sitting in Caesar position in the castle's interior. Izuku responds in Romanian to Dracula's native Romanian, "So young lion, before we do battle, what is your name?" "Izuku Midoriya of UA, I am here to stop you, Prince of Darkness." Izuku tosses Dracula's sword to him while he declares, "One who lives by the sword dies by the sword." As both Izuku and Dracula assume their sword stances, they realize that only one of them will survive the battle. The pair leaps at one another and fights fiercely with swords. Izuku engages in a sword fight with the warrior who is several centuries old. The Greenette's sword skills astound Dracula. Hours passed while the heroes successfully gained entry to the castle and repelled Dracula's legion of creatures. As he manages to force Dracula into a wall and knock him through it, Izuku dodges a bull rush by Dracula. They are fighting on the castle's roof. The two resume swordplay, with neither side having the upper hand as they trade blows, parries, and strikes while keeping pace with one another. Seeing the sword fight as a failure, Dracula decides to use vampiric magic in an attempt to overpower him with lightning strikes and wind gusts, using the clouds as anchors of his weather powers. The Prince of Darkness appears to have been under pressure from Izuku's skill as a swordsman as he blocks or avoids multiple lightning strikes, wind gusts, and vicious sword cleaves. Dracula flips the Prince of Darkness over and sends a shockwave that knocks him back, but Izuku blocks his blow. Soon after, Izuku breaks the sword lock and disarms Dracula, putting the two in a blade lock. Dracula disarms Izuku after transforming into a hybrid of a human and a bat. The heroes witness the fierce battle and attempt to assist, but Izuku transforms into a human-lion hybrid before engaging Dracula in combat. The two engage in a vicious grapple in which they both exchange physical and claw blows, with Izuku throwing Dracula from the tower. The heroes follow as Izuku jumps down to re-engage Dracula in the forest. In a battle of man-beasts, Izuku and Dracula exchange blows, kicks, throws, takedowns, and claw strikes. Izuku hands Dracula the death blow by decapitating him with a man-beast claw as soon as his body turns to ash and the clouds open up to reveal dawn. Dracula is bleeding and struggling to keep up with his younger counterpart when Izuku flips him on his stomach and begins tearing the king of vampires apart as his spell over the clouds begins to fade. When Dracula dies, his hell beasts return to hell, his gargoyles disintegrate, and his vampires start to turn to ash. Dracula disappears as his ashes are flung to the wind and his mauled form is burned by the day's light. Upon returning to his human form, Izuku changes back into his armored state and gazes up at the sky, remembering the better times he had before the battle. As he turns to face the heroes, Izuku says, "Rest forever in darkness, Prince of Darkness." Najire rushes up to embrace him, sensing that he is okay, blushes as she breaks the embrace, and feels his muscular body. Sir Night Eye said, "Young Midoriya, you have done an amazing job in service to Mustafa in Japan. While you know no one can know about this." Suragame had to concur. Izuku approaches Dracula's sword, a scimitar with a distinctive design, and spins it around while examining it curiously. "I don't need any reward, only knowing that my city and my country is safe, plus I do have a souvenir." As Izuku grinned at the tomboy heroine's compliment, Miriko remarked, "Well kid, you got style in a bestial sort of way. However, I'm curious as to who brought his sarcophagus to Japan." Izuku believes that forces other than the League of Villains are at work. As he feels the forest breeze on his way home, he keeps it to himself. A new day has begun, and the night is over. After facing one of the greatest villains in history, Izuku is growing more proficient and knowledgeable.
So this was it for the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, we weeb offline.